Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. It's October 18th, 2023. I'm so pleased because we're at level 1, lesson 10. And the way that I have the course structured, sometimes things don't sync exactly perfectly right because I've already done the advanced teaching all about what Merkaba is. Now I'm technically doing the beginning teaching, but it all fits together. I wouldn't even say now at this point that there's an advanced versus a beginning. That's why I just put everything, make everything available. So I think there are also some new students who have just recently hopped on board. Hi and welcome. I'm so pleased that you've enrolled, and we're really just about halfway through the semester and have shared some of the foundation information. Oh, my lasagna. No, it's right here. Because I traveled. I was like, oh, no, it's still packed or something like that. No, my lasagna is right here. The very first thing that we pack and unpack is the lasagna. The foundations of being able to know what you need to know in order to do the lasagna. So it's like if you were going to play the piano, I wouldn't have to teach you everything about like how to chop down wood and then get some piano strings or anything like that. But you should know about like what are the musical keys and what are these white and black things that you are playing upon. So that's everything that I teach about in pretty much the foundation stuff that we're doing here, this sculpture in particular. And so what I'm going to do today is relate this sculpture to the Merkaba shape, which is a star tetrahedron. I actually do have my sculptures very well organized over here. No, it's in the other room. Oh, guys, you got to bear with me. It's in the other room. Hold on a second. I'll grab it for you. Thank you for that. And hopefully, there you go. You can see that pretty well. The star tetrahedron shape, how this relates to and integrates with this, because you can see that this shape over here is made out of straight lines. This shape over here is made out of circles, spheres, and curvilinear shapes. And today's teaching is all about the bridge between those two shapes, which basically is the bridge between your physical cellular body with its own miraculous biological nature and your non-physical body that is a body of pure time, possibilities and probabilities that could be considered more of like a mathematical body, an abstraction, a light in terms of something being non-optical light, but instead being information or something that is intelligence and pure sentience. So that's what's on the menu today. But first, I'm going to give you the energetic weather report. My drink not only has electrolytes and my wonderful raw cannabis cubes. So I'm taking good, fantastic nutrients during the marathon right now. I did a lot of talking over the weekend. I'll tell you about where I was too. So I returned back a little bit later than I had planned. However, over this past amazing weekend, it was a portal of the eclipse. So that was on Saturday, October 14th. We had an eclipse that went across a large area of the United States, all the way from Oregon across very close to where I was the full eclipse. So I was definitely in visiting Arizona, closer to, the area of impact for that. Although, of course, it impacts all of us. I have only positive weather reports to share with you. So my best analogy is because I was literally just driving on some of these giant, 6-10 lane highways. Can be so intimidating. Like you're driving along and there's like all these different signs. Like here's, like route 102, and then here's route 68, and then here's route this, and here's route that. And you have to like read all the signs. Okay, which one do I want? Get in the right lane. And then you have to stay focused on the one that you want to go on, right? That is literally how you go through a time portal. Yes. So, wait, let's see what Pedro says. Pedro, hola, thank you for being here. Says, hi, I missed the eclipse with some board games with my friends and we forgot. Well, I'm happy that you are doing something positive because I have, like I said, only positive reportage. That I know that a lot of people have been like severely traumatized and very concerned, continually concerned about the worst possibilities unfolding and catastrophes and disasters and other things. And I speak in this class a lot about the reverberative traumas that the entire earthly collective has felt since what is called the fall of Atlantis, or the fall of consciousness. He didn't fall, he was pushed, of consciousness, and fearful of a similar thing happening again. That would be like, so not only social disruption, but pretty much like biological disruption. And a lot of people are afraid of that. But I want you to think of that as like one of the lanes of the highway that's like all the way on the other side away from you. That if you're here with me, congratulations, because we drove through that energy portal and made it onto these positive timelines that are all the way over here on this side of the road. And what this reality structure that we are aligning with is not about, having to merely survive if there is some kind of a cessation of resources or something like that. So there's a beautiful community of people that are in Arizona where I was visiting that are very prepared for that. And I'm glad that people have those skills. And I'm glad that they've been able to empower themselves by doing things like learning how to do things, building community, and then also, preparing themselves in case there was just a disruption at higher levels. But I want you to know that you are on a timeline where you will experience, let me just mute you, positive growth experiences that are comfortable, that are fun, that are biologically supportive, meaning things that where your needs for food and water and shelter and all those things are being taken into account. And more than that, all the things that were really put on hold for the past 2 years that you should have been able to do as part of your personal development and soul development, finally get to return to those things, which is absolutely crucial. Those are the things that I've been telling you about, how I felt so distressed at knowing that you weren't really getting a chance to, distractions, to explore an information-rich environment, and were beset by many distraction frequencies and frequencies that block out truthful reality, and not having an opportunity to really explore your soul growth, your personal growth, and everything else that is important to you. Now you finally get to do those things. So that's really what I try to tell people. Like, if you try to plant a seed in the wintertime and it doesn't grow, don't take it personally. And also, you don't have to calibrate to the sense of like, it'll never happen. It can never happen. Please know that these things can and will happen. You've simply had to kind of like keep your embers alive during a time that was antithetical to growth. Now it is time for that growth. So that eclipse on Saturday was an absolutely critical node to be able to get past in terms of navigating the time field. So I didn't spend the whole entire eclipse doing this thing, but a small portion of it at the event that I was at. So it was like a fair on Saturday with many different booths, and that people had things to share. And one woman, who also turns out to be a walk-in, had this kind of sound table that you could lay down upon and get a giant, I just don't even know how to describe it. Sound bath is not the word. I was doing that during the eclipse. So it's kind of like this beautiful padded massage table with speakers embedded within it, and makes it possible for you to just feel all of the music going all through you. And you also have headphones too at the same time. And boy, did that make me lasagna dance. So right in the middle of the eclipse, I'm laying on this table and getting totally, I don't know what we call it, sonically fed with wonderful frequency. It's like how it should be. I want to say it's how experts do start travel. Music really helps. It really does make me feel like jumping through portals. So had an absolutely amazing experience with that and connecting in community there, and also shared flying Rainbow Lasagne stuff. And I don't always do live streams of my lasagna on YouTube, just because it's like a very special thing to me. And so I wanted to share something of it. I just posted a video, not the actual dance, but things I was talking about and getting people prepared for the dance, my presentation for the workshop. Shared that on Patreon, just because I really I feel like I have to explain or justify myself. For me, Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a gift that I share with the world. something very special that is beyond commodification. It's innate to my being, or just a basic part of my nature. It's what I'm here for, in order to share it and do it with people like in a very special context. And so, yeah, I'm very pleased I do that, on Tuesdays with a small group via Zoom. And then also I did that in person over at the place where I was in Phoenix, which is amazing. If you're in the area, please go to, it's called the Giving Tree Cafe. They're wonderful, and the owner's whole entire vision of what that place is everything that I agree with, in terms of being very, very conscientious about the light and the energy that goes into food and how that affects people on their spiritual journey. And also they host some very wonderful events there. So just a fantastic place, fantastic establishment, and just go there. Okay. That was my experience over the weekend. So I have only positive weather reports about what we experienced as a collective, and what I experienced personally in terms of going through that particular doorway of opportunity and the reality structures having been aligned with. So please, my big encouragement to you is, please do the things, do all the things. Don't be kind of stuck, frozen in paralysis, or rocking back and forth. Don't be afraid to do the things. You know what I mean? Start that business or that project, or make the creativity that you want to do all the things that are really important to you. And even if you weren't able to do them over the past 2 years of turmoil, like pandemic and post-pandemic, that just might not have been the right time, but now is the right time for your opportunities, and also create your opportunities. And this is the time when you can finally create opportunities from within, and be oh, my dreams actually do manifest, and I actually am a powerful person. I actually can make this good stuff happen. Good stuff. Focus on good stuff, do the things, make good stuff happen. Okay, so I know I've been talking a lot, and we also started a little bit late. Let me get into today's actual curriculum. Let me pull up my notes. Wait, here's notes. All of my squinting and scrolling before class, I promise, guys. I always promise, and it's not true. Wait, I want to have this. Wait, this. And do I have one more picture for us? I don't think so. No. Okay. Clearing my screen, getting everything ready to be able to show you what I got. Oh, I do. Actually, I have to squint and scroll. Sorry. I fooled you. I fooled us all. I thought I had gotten all of my imagery up, but I didn't. So now I'm going to make silly faces. But this is worth it. Hope it's visible so I can find what I need to find. If not, I'll draw it for you. Yeah, the screenshot's good. That one, no, and then this one. Oh, that's Cheeky. Cheeky came with me on all of my wonderful adventures. Was excellent in the CAR. You can't actually say the word CAR because she gets so excited. And was free range at all of these events, and just went around having the most fun, hugging people and saying hi. Look, Cheeky is right here. Cheeky's oh, it's time for class. I'm so happy we're here. She's very, very happy and excited. Yeah, so only the most positive and amazing praise for Cheeky, because she's totally earned it. You guys have no idea. It was a 9-hour car ride, and we were driving across deserts of 100 degrees. So it was very hot, and Cheeky was not that happy. So amazing, good dog. But then we got the air conditioning fixed. The end. Today, we're talking about the bridge between squares and hexagons. Squares and hexagons, and the way that cubes and hexagons interrelate in terms of, again, this shape that is curvilinear and represents your time body. And all right, I've started out saying things in a backwards way, so now I have to stop again. The shape of your time body and your physical presence being integrated through greater understanding of what the cube is and the hexagon is. So here's the main thing to know about. This shape has negative space inside of it. In art, when we talk about negative space, it doesn't mean bad, wrong, or poopy in any way. It just means the space that holds space. So when in your coffee cup, the space that is the negative space in the sculptural form of your coffee cup is where you put your coffee. All right. So in this sculpture, the negative space is where I'm wiggling my pen. And in all of my drawings, like, look, you can see this kind of four-lobed shape. That is a cross section of the sculpture that you see here, where you have these negative spaces. And the negative space is actually in a non-accessible area within the sculpture. Like, you exist within the time vortex here. This is the membrane of death. You actually don't go in here. That's a whole different place in reality. And this sculpture, which is made out of just like very like silly kids clay, but it's lasted for a long time and it does the job what I need it to do, represents the negative space that fits inside of here. So one of these can fit inside of there. I have to hold it in exactly the right way so that you can kind of see the four lobes that come together here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. But you don't just have 4 of these, you actually have 8 of these, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have the other half where my hand was holding it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when you look at all of these, and I hold the sculpture, in just the right way, what you have is something that is shaped kind of like a cube, right? So I'm going to count the sides of this sculpture for you. My hand is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It is roughly cube shaped, right? This is the full recipe for Flower of Life, not the limited recipe of strudels that don't actually rise in the oven. So that basic shape is the same as the basic shape of, we usually see Merkaba like this. One of the commenters in YouTube used to say, poised on its edge like a corpulent ballerina. And then it's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say corpulent ballerina, but I like that term and think that's very, very funny and a funny way of describing it. That's usually how we see this shape depicted. But if you put it flat like this, exactly the same thing. Here in front of my face, you can kind of see it better. You can't actually see anything on this screen. It's too dark. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's a basic 6-sided shape. And how does that relate to this shape right here? Because this orange sculpture is inside of this yellow sculpture. I have already lost you. I can tell. Don't worry. Don't be worried. Look, we're going to go like this. First, I'm going to start off with this painting that I did years ago called The Bridge Between Squares and Hexagons. And, oh, where's the annotation? Guys, you know me and my annotation. I'm going to have like moderate angst. I have annotation angst because now I have to go back to it again. Click on the button faster. Okay, click on the button faster. Hooray! Annotation is here now. Okay, good. And let's choose a color that you can actually see. Good. So what is a hexagon? Hexagon is a 6-sided flat shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Due to the miracle, not miracle, but astounding thing that we know as perspective. Wait, I might have to move this up on your screen a little bit so I can actually draw it. And also drive you crazy by doing that. I had to literally move that little window up so that I'd be able to see it. Now let's do pressing buttons again. Let's do it. It's time. It's going to work. Hooray. So I already outlined for you. Oh, again, the annotation. Okay. A plain hexagon. Here, let's show you. This is a plain hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. It's exactly the same shape as this guy down here. It's actually no different in size and shape, but what is different is the coloring and the way that I have chosen to use different tones of colors and shading, making it look to you as if this is a 3-dimensional object, where here you have the top, And then here you have the two sides. So this shape over here, you're like, oh, that looks like just, a flat shape, nothing that has depth and form. But this shape over here, you literally read as a cube. And that is because of the astounding fact of 2-point perspectives. So 2-point perspective, here is one of the points of the perspective. Here, oops, my pen is doing wild things. The other point of perspective, and all of these lines, so that's an infinity point, and then that's an infinity point, and in perspective, all of the lines converge at the infinity point. And this is art school. I am taking you guys through art school right now. That is called perspective. That was developed in the Renaissance. So before the Renaissance, in the early 1400s or so in Northern Europe, most art was like this. This is kind of like a flat image that does not have very much depth to it. And when people made paintings, portraits, and other things, it was not something that was considered to be, go back to my face so I can gesture for you here, like a window that you look through. So right now, you're looking at your screen, whether it's a phone or a computer or whatever it is, but where my image is, this is just a normal part of your life. You don't have to go through a complete brain retraining in order to be like, well, I'm seeing colored forms and shapes and something's there. And look, it's a room that has depth and there's foreground, midground, and background. You're like, this is normal. In fact, we give these little, screen things to children, and they learn like from the time they are 2 and 3 years old. You're not looking at a flat thing, you're looking at a window that you look through the window, right? So here in my room, there's like me, I'm in the foreground, and there's some stuff in the midground, and then the far background would be like where that plant is, where that window is. And you guys know now how to not only read a screen, but also read a painting. Like if I took you to a museum where there's a painting and there's like a portrait of a person in the front, and then things go back into the far distance, and then maybe you see mountains or something back there, you're like, oh, that looks perfectly normal. This was a visual revolution when it happened a long time ago in Northern Europe. That's called the Renaissance. That there were a couple of amazing artists that really started to blow everybody's minds with their visual compositions. It wasn't just the development of oil paint and the capacity to make very, very realistic skin tones. It was also the development of perspective that made it appear as if something that is flat, two-dimensional plane actually has three-dimensional form. You get it? Two-dimensional, like a flat painting or a flat drawing, is a lower dimension. And a three-dimensional form, meaning something that has depth and a background behind it, is putting a higher dimensional shape into a lower dimensional kind of shorthand. And that was an artistic skill and remains an artistic skill. And that is what they teach at most traditional art schools. Foreground, midground, background, composition, and also things that are in the foreground. These are tips of the trade in case you want to paint something, but you make them bigger, because look, I'm bigger, and then that sculpture that's actually quite large is little and it's in the background and it looks smaller, and other things too, like blues and other colors that are cool recede, and reds and other colors that are warm advance forward. So now we go back to this art school. Go back to my painting, share this screen right here. And now you can see, oh, look at what I did. So I made these colors and these tones very intentional, so that way, when you looked at this part where my cursor is wiggling along the bottom margin of your screen, you would interpret those hexagons as popping forward. That is what it is. It's painting that teaches you that these hexagons essentially are the same perimeter, the same size, the same shape as the ones that you read as flattened objects, but it is your system of visual interpretation that is bringing them forward into the next highest dimension. So do you guys remember in my teaching from, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, the advanced Merkaba, when I taught you about changing a star tetrahedron, one of these guys, into an octahedron, one of these guys, and they have the same number of facets, but you are arranging those facets differently. Remember my wonderful sculptures. This is what I shared over at the cafe this past weekend. Tetrahedron, equilateral triangle, pyramid is the word I'm looking for, into, oops, the type of pyramid that has a square base and equilateral sides. That's like the pyramid that we have in ancient Egypt. And when you do that, you also gain an additional angle. You go from all 60-degree angles, 60, 60, 60, and that all adds up to 180. Then you also get this top angle, which might be a little bit not perfect. Edges don't meet. Trust me, it's a 90-degree angle. And when you get that, then important things happen. So getting past any of the skepticism that the New Age community might have about what is the Merkaba, what is hard-edged, polygons that have straight sides, and the dreaded 90-degree angle. And, there's all of these things that are about like the black cube at Mecca or black sculptures in Saturn's cube and all of these things. Please know that these things have been either partially disseminated or misappropriated, and very genuine positive information has been taken, twisted, and limited in its presentation to you, again, like the flower of life, in an effort to give you a partial strudel recipe that will never properly rise in the oven, and that will keep you continually dependent upon grandma or the government or secret societies or whomever to be able to create these structures in reality. But please know that I'm giving you the full strudel recipe so that you may be empowered, the full pastry empowerment teaching, which is drink some of my wonderful electrolyte, etc. here. Okay. So some of the things that are hexagons in your body are not only the creation of the first cell clusters when you are as a tiny beginning life form started to be conceived in your mother's womb. As the sperm and the egg came together, there's this perfect vector of forces that then begins to expand outward in a perfectly balanced set of forces and creates these initial cell groupings that form these perfect 60-degree angles, equilateral triangles, tetrahedral pyramids, if you use straight edges to connect the bubbles and their vertexes in the bubbles. And then also that's the basis of what is the life form that you're presently inhabiting, that those grow in greater and greater levels of complexity. So to synopsize, the very, very beginnings of life, in particular, your biological existence here, contain these perfect 60-degree angles. And they must, because that is a life container in this world. So we're not against those, like, no, I don't like these 60-degree angles. Like, they're keeping you alive. Don't be against them. You do like 60-degree angles. But what you want to do is have a vehicle or a container that also is able to integrate into the higher dimensional realms, and that is not limited or at odds with the world of pure energy, pure thought, pure cognition, pure sentience, pure intelligence, pure light. I'm pointing out my window. That's not just optical light coming here into my room. That is actually intelligence light. Organizational principle light. And so your physical container contains a lot of light in the cellular structure of how your cell membranes literally come together in these perfect angles, and also two of the major constituent elements of what your body is made up of, water and carbon. So water can be structured as these perfect 60-degree angles as well, and that absolutely supports life and longevity. And the water's not just the water that you drink being structured in these 60-degree angles, but the water that's in like your cytoplasm, that's the water that's inside of your cell membrane, your extracellular fluid, that's the stuff that's outside of your cell membrane, and even the water that is inside of your nuclear membrane. So you've got the goo that's inside of your cell, that's got a lot of water in it. The goo that's outside of your cell, that's kind of your juiciness, that's also got a lot of water in it. Blood supply, of course, and then literal water that is around your nuclei, in your DNA inside your nuclei. And I didn't even get into your mitochondria, who literally, as one of the byproducts of their metabolism of food glucose into ATP electrons, produce structured water. So your body actually produces structured water as an end result of the molecular chemical rearrangement and cascade of events that make it possible for me to do things like walk on a treadmill right now or move my flapping mouth parts of my mouth. I talked a lot over the weekend. That's why you can kind of hear it in my voice. So thank you for bearing with me. 60-degree angles inform the shape of water. So, you know, you can see it when water is frozen as a snowflake. I don't know if any of you guys live in a climate where it actually snows, but please look at a picture of a snowflake if you've not seen one directly in person, that they are completely beautiful, complex, hexagonal crystals, and they are kind of like flat. So they are kind of like these little flat crystals. So not something that has rounded dimensional form, but something that is like a slice, like a piece of paper, and perfect hexagons. And then the other thing that is hexagonal in nature, that is one of the recipes of you, is carbon. And carbon, the molecule. So water, when it's in its crystalline form, that we, not an ice cube, even though there are plenty of ice crystals inside of an ice cube, but individuated ice crystals are shaped like hexagons. And carbon molecules are shaped like hexagons too. Now I go to this, which is screenshots from a video that I didn't make that I'm sharing with you. Let's just share my whole entire desktop here. There, share desktop. So we already saw this. Oh, get the annotation. Oh, but if I get the annotation, then I can't do stuff. Yeah. I'm like constantly being thwarted here, guys. Okay, so forget about annotation right now. Because no, I don't need this. I'm going to make you crazy. Okay. We're gonna do this, guys. Bear with me. We're gonna go to the desktop. We're gonna go like this. I don't want the annotation. I'm letting it go. Annotation is gone. No, annotation, go bye-bye. Good. And then what I'm gonna, no, I don't want you. Annotation, I do not want you in my life. You can just go. Okay, and let's see if I can do this now. Hooray, I can. Because I wanted to rearrange these things. So we've already worked with this image, but now I want to show you these 3 screenshots. So this one is actually part 3. This one is part 2. And this one, oh, no, I didn't need the annotation. Get out of here, annotation. Now it's like, hi, here's the annotation. I'm like, where were you when I needed you? Okay. Now, this is part 1 of the not animation, but screenshots. So you can see that each one of these molecular sheets is flat like a piece of paper. It's 2-dimensional. And I hope that you can see that each one of the elements that makes up these molecular chains or positive matrices or tessellations, puzzle pieces all fitting together, is hexagonal. This is how your body that's made of carbon becomes your body that's made like a diamond. Very, very same molecules that make up carbon, like a pencil lead, graphite, or that also make up literal like charcoal that we use in art school. Rearrange them into a perfect arrangement and you have a diamond. I don't actually have a diamond. I think this is fluorite, but pretend it's a diamond. Pretend I'm just standing here holding up like a multi-million-dollar diamond. Diamonds are translucent, means light goes through them, translucent. And diamonds are very, very hard. And diamonds are not only translucent, but brilliant. So the difference between diamond and a glass, pane of glass, is that light is translucent. Light flows through it. See the window in the background over there. The light is flowing through the window, but it's not brilliant, because brilliance is when the inner facets of a gem bounce and amplify the light. That's why we wear beautiful diamonds. Wait, I'll go back to my face. Wait, stop sharing, go back to my face. We wear beautiful diamonds because we're like this, like this. Wait, I have to put down this thing. I'm going to be married, and this thing like sparkles, and it shoots off light, right? But if it's just like a pane of glass, like your glass doesn't sparkle, just light comes through it. The same light that went into it comes through it. That is translucent, but that's not the same as brilliance. So the brilliance has to do with the inner refraction and the facets of a gem that make the light come into it go out of it in an even more fun and exciting pattern. That is that sparkle, sparkle, sparkle. That is what humans love and are impressed by. So the brilliance of a diamond in contrast to the opacity of either charcoal or graphite. These things are pretty much opposite characteristics. The very same stuff gets rearranged very carefully and then becomes having almost completely opposite characteristics. This relates to your body form. Materialists look at their body, and I don't like this term, but they say the meat suit. I'm like, I have a lot to say about this. Because when I came into my body as a walk-in 22 years ago, I didn't feel like, oh, like this is this meat suit or, you know, some stupidity thing like that. I was just largely disconnected from the body and the body processes. I just didn't know enough about it. And the more integrated I became with my body and the more that I learned about digestion is a miracle. Metabolism, you know, being able to cellularly respirate and use food for your energy to do stuff in life. And all of these subtleties of the cellular biochemical world that's inside of you, the more I learned about it, I was like, this is pretty amazing. So please recognize your body is a walking miracle, not a meat suit. But the objective materialist looks at it as like a mere inconvenience, like this, to brush these teeth and to do all these hygiene things. And it's constant food and watering of the body and the constant toileting of the body, when all I really want to do is like think about stuff and be a mind. And it's like, no. So it's a reductionist, simplistic way of looking at the body, when your body is actually quite miraculous and complex. And recognizing that is the journey of going from a rather disorganized carbon that is not even translucent but is opaque into levels of metamorphose. When you become highly organized, your water becomes highly organized, your carbon becomes highly organized, and you achieve what is known as your diamond body. And your diamond body is brilliant in that you don't just pass light through you as something that is translucent, you actually amplify and facet and shoot around all of the light that flows through you. Light being information, intelligence, accrued knowledge like wisdom, and sentience. More sentience comes out of you and comes out of you in these beautiful sparkling patterns than went into you. And that is an amazing way to be. So this process that I'm teaching you about right now in terms of Merkaba and interdimensional travel has to do with a rearrangement of yourself, not only on a cellular level, but also on a level of pure information. And integrating these two things together makes it possible for you to be able to do the tetrahedron to octahedron transformation of perception and transformation of levels of inner organization that allows you to go through the frequency door. That's from Symphony of Life. I will always think, like when you hear a song and you always like, that always echoes in your head, that's why I do it that way. And I joke about it because that's what that is, but that's why I wrote that song. So now let's talk about, first of all, the flower of life. You guys are probably very, very hugely familiar already with what the flower of life is and what it looks like. It is printed on like yoga mats and water flasks and all sorts of things. And people joke about that. You know, it's not the full teaching. The issue is it's just not the full teaching. So when people have the flower of life that is printed as like a decorative scarf or something like that, you have something like this, where you're not seeing the full number of stellated lobes in the shape. You're only seeing 6 of them. Let's count them around the edge, and then I'll show you the actual sculpture. Like, this is like Sesame Street. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 and the prefix hex for hexagon. The X sound in there should help be your mnemonic device. Sixa and hexa. So we've got 6 lobes showing, but that's not the entire story. When you see the flower of life that is flattened out, you're seeing a flat cross section of these 6 lobes. But mostly what has not been recognized is, I'm going to change colors. You've got one that sticks forward to you. That's this one that's pointing towards the camera. And then you've also, I'll change to a different color so you don't get confused. I can't even see what I'm doing. What do? Different color. Pointing in the opposite direction. That's the one that's pointing away from the camera, that's behind all these that you can't even see. That makes 7 and 8. Let me drink a little something and then count this out for you, because we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're dancing. This shape is the negative space of this shape. Just keep that in mind. The limited flower of life teachings show you this shape as if you have one eye, monocular vision, no depth, as opposed to binocular vision. So it is only showing you a certain level of information and truth. So here's the actual sculpture that I'm trying to get. So now you see why I have it kind of put together with like these delicate little wires, so that I can make things and hold them in just the right way. Hold them up to people. And fiddling. There we go. Pretty good fiddling. Let's count. 1. Oops, here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then here's that one that points towards you in foreshortening. And then also, here's one, look, that I'm holding on to right back here, 7 and 8. We've actually got 8 lobes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the flower of life, as it is presented in common culture at this point, is only a part of the story if it only shows 6 of those lobes. And also the lobes usually don't look as, large and wide as these. They usually look a little bit narrower. So there's different things about the size of the lobes, the angle of their incidence, and only showing 6 of them. That's the limitation that people are feeling an innate sense of disillusionment yet with. Like, I don't really like this. This doesn't feel like the real story, and I'm mistrustful of this. And you get the full recipe. So the full recipe is that you have 8 lobes, and those 8 lobes relate to the negative space within your chakras. And that, how do we relate that to the higher dimensional travel of your Merkaba? Turning the 8 sides and the facets of this tetrahedron shape into the 8 sides and the facets of this octahedron shape. Okay. So you have basically things that are based in a grid or a system of 6, and things that are based in a grid or a system of 8s. The cube is an integration system between that which is based in 6 and that which is based in 8s. It is like a perception bridge that brings those 2 things together. And that is why I named this painting the bridge between squares and hexagons. So this is only a detail of the painting, but you can see very, very clearly what's going on here. Flat hexagonal shapes, and then new coloring and new shading techniques, making it look as if they are cubes, the bridge between squares and hexagons. And then you can also see in here that cross-section of the 8-lobed orange sculpture. That is this, you would call it a 4-winged shape. I don't know if that's the right word. I want to say organism or creature. These are the type of wings that you have around you as a light being. So you have these vortexes that are time vortexes that surround your whole entire body. Then you have the negative space that are these wings, or sometimes call them lobe shapes or football shapes, that go around you, and that is also part of your wings. And they're not static, they spin. And the spinning of these 4 lobes around and around and around is what makes that vortex in the middle. So these aren't just static objects, and you don't just sit there doing nothing. They actually are completely part of the expression that we know as this. These 2 worlds fit together, and that recognizing how these 2 worlds fit together is empowerment teaching. Let me go into my notes to make sure that I've got all of this. All right, so flower of life is called quote unquote sacred geometry. I don't usually use the word geometry because it means literally measuring earth. And most of my work, in terms of my visual work that I teach about, is not about something that you can measure with a physical ruler. It's not about something that you can measure that is earth matter. It is the ephemeral, non-tangible aspects of your being. And the measurement or recognition of them is done with your inner eye or your levels of pure consciousness and pure awareness, not with like a physical tape measure. All right. So geometry means measuring stuff with a physical tape measure. It was originally from ancient Egypt in the flooding of the Nile, because they would make these complex patterns of farmland to be able to say, who's growing what and how much do you get at the end of the season. And when the Nile would flood it, all of their borders would be washed away. So they had to learn how to measure the earth. So that it was like, okay, after the flood recedes, then I'm going to figure out where's my field and where's your field and how much whatever barley, we divide things up in a fair way. All right. So think about that when you say geometry. Geometry also is accurate to like measuring the size and formation of like your body parts and your cellular structure. It's literally measuring the aspect of your earth. But when I'm holding up this sculpture, I'm holding up your time body. It's not something that you measure with like inches on a ruler. It's a different level of pure abstraction, still part of you, abstract body. So I call this like a language of harmonics, a language of color and form and shape and movement and texture and tone, like musical tone. Turning my piano, it takes 5 minutes. Ba, 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 musical tone. So those things, oh, my voice sounds terrible, all fit together and integrate. That's what it is to be a full spectrum human. And the recognition of transformation of your largely hexagonal physical shape, body structure that we measure with geometry into a diamond body happens by adding an additional dimension. So my big thing I'm trying to get across to you is, just as the artists of the Northern European Renaissance taught their viewers to add a dimension visually when interpreting a flat optical piece of artwork, I am teaching you guys how to add a dimension with your mind and with your perception to go from being made out of flat hexagonal water crystals and flat hexagonal carbon crystals and to become, where's my crystal? A translucent and brilliant diamond form. Let's go back to, this is wonderful, this. Back to my share screen of my desktop. Because wait, you can also see, this is worth looking at. This is a screenshot of the actual lesson. So new people, welcome. And all of these things that I'm teaching you right now are the current, most relevant aspects of what I have to share. I'm going to relate it to current events and your present ongoing ascension experience. The recorded lessons are like a basic black dress, always in style, never out of style, but sometimes needing just like new accessories or greater levels of clarification as to how it relates to what's going on right now. Over here on the left, you see the basic line drawing of what the flower of life is. And then over here on the right, this is not my graphic, but these are how the initial cell groupings happen from the moment of conception into the first splitting of your cells, the first cell division, the next cell division, the next cell division, so you get this cluster of roughly 64 cells. And you can also see these paintings I have in the background here, Merkaba Chakra 1, Merkaba Chakra 2. I can pull those up so that you can see them even more strongly, and the orange sculpture that's there. But before I pull up those paintings, it's squinting and scrolling. Let's put this one down to the bottom. That was my, I don't like what technology is doing right now, please. Okay, so you start off with these flat sheets of carbon. Wait, this is another thing I can X out, and another thing I can X out. Now your screen should be easier to see. You start off with these flat sheets of carbon. And what happens is they start to transform and become ridged, like the ridged potato chips. You know what I mean? A little down, a little up, a little down, a little up. You're taking something that is flat and two-dimensional and beginning to deform it into the higher dimensional space known as the third dimension. And then when you end up with a very ridged is the only word I can come up with, corrugated surface, these surfaces come together and they make this three-dimensional matrix, and a matrix is a grouping, and this is what diamond is. This is the molecular grouping of carbon that is diamond. Let's go through it again because I did it fast. Start off with these flat sheets. That is known as graphite. And then you move into the adding of the convolutions to its surface and folding it into greater levels of complexity. And then once it is super folded into these levels of complexity, you end up making a three-dimensional grouping that is what a diamond is. This is the metamorphosis that you are going through as an individuated cellular structure in order to be able to achieve being a translucent and brilliant light being. That is a diamond being. And all of that happens as a educational and transformative journey of your perception, just like people had to be taught how to look through a flat painting and see depth there. So the artists of that time took their viewers on a journey. Like first there was someone who painted a portrait that didn't just, they used to just have like a flat background. Get it? Because the thing that mattered was the person's face, not what was in the background. And then they started to create these deeper backgrounds. It's Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa's got kind of a background, and it taught people like there's kind of something behind the person. It looks like it's kind of going off into the distance. There's something back there. And Rembrandt also did some work in being able to create these complex compositions where like people are in front of other people. And so basically what I'm trying to say is they didn't just go directly to diamond in terms of human consciousness. What they did was they're like, well, first we're going to show you, here's a foreground, and then there's a little bit of a background. And people started to get the sense of like, there's something going on in the painting that feels like real life, but it's flat, you know, kind of like look around the back edge of the painting, like, is there's something around the back edge of the painting, there's nothing back there, it's flat. But your perception is perceiving it as if there's something that you go through. And then with successive more and more and more complex paintings that happened, that other artists made, they brought the viewer on a journey. So now when you go into fancy museum, you see like, oh yes, this painting from the beginning of the Renaissance, when they had just started exploring perspective. And then this one where the backgrounds and the composition became more complex, and then into these levels here, because the viewer had to get more complex and more sophisticated in what they could see and perceive and accept and decipher as a visual image. All right. So know that this is a journey of perception, the journey into creating your physical body as a starship that can go into a higher dimensional realm is a journey of perception where you are looking at what is essentially the third dimension or formful objects, but that move through time from a higher dimensional perspective. And all of this absolutely relates to the flying rainbow lasagna, because this flying rainbow lasagna is the higher dimensional form of this double torus shape. So all of these are exercises that you do at the gym of spiritual attainment and spiritual fitness, where you're like, first I'm going to learn how to make like something that's two-dimensional look three-dimensional. And then I'm going to learn how to do like, well, what am I doing with like my body's changing from, snowflake shaped water into diamond shaped water. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, I'm going to take the whole entire toroidal energy field, which is three-dimensional and fourth dimensional, it's moving through time, and turn it into a flying rainbow lasagna shape. You're like, I know how to jump, like you do these things at a gym. Like I jump on a box that's like 3 inches high. You jump on a box that's 6 inches high. Eventually you jump on a box that is 12 inches high, and that's lasagna. Okay. So that's the reason why, like, why should I do all this, Aurora? You should do this because it teaches you and it helps your muscles to grow so that you can be able to do stuff. So let me talk about the importance of structured water. Today, I'm not just drinking water. Wait, I should actually get just plain water. Hold on one second. I'll pause the video. I'll go get some plain water because I'm definitely needing some plain water. Hold on. I didn't have a fancy glass because I have to do the dishes because I was busy driving back from Phoenix. But This is my wonderful structured water. I have special water that's been filtered and then remineralized. And then I put it into this beautiful container that you can see does not really have like 90-degree angles in it, that has these beautiful edges. And I put this wonderful stuff into it that helps it to structure. And I let it be there in this container for a certain number of hours, like overnight is ideal. And then I also, I'll do other things to it in terms of putting energy or information into it, some of which comes from the frequencies of my IBA crystals, but you can use all sorts of different crystals. This is just structured water. So I just don't drink regular water that comes out of the tap, and even though we're not fluoridated, and I also don't just drink regular water that comes out of a bottle, like bottled water or filtered water or something like that. Although that's good water, that is water that's like either a blank page of water. It's a blank page with no information, or maybe it has like child scribbles on it and not really informative information in it. So I'm trying to say, you need to clear your water like you clear a crystal, and then you need to put information into it that is information you want to go into your body. This is what I do every day, and it has a huge impact on the organizational structure of your actual physical cellular fluids. Okay, so once again, I should go through my actual procedure. What is structured water? How do you structure water? The best thing for full information on this, because it's a deep topic, is go to the website Dancing with Water. I think that they are really wonderful people with a great passion for what they do. They have very, very good products with integrity. They have a wonderful book that is where I learned and read about this, called Dancing with Water. And it's not by accident. Flying Rainbow Lasagne is a dance, and they're talking about dancing with water and the beautiful shapes that water makes. And that's pretty much what you want to do. So the basis of this is that in our present industrial, not civilized in air quotes, but civilized world, water usually flows through pipes that have all sorts of 90-degree angles, and is not held in cisterns that are shaped like what I just showed you, like that beautiful kind of curved shape. And it has definitely a detrimental effect on the body. And then they also put a lot of millimeter wave antennae and broadcasters on the water towers where communities store their water. There's just so many different ways in which water is literally being, like I said, either a blank piece of paper with no natural information or child scribble, not actual information. In a finer time, the way that we drank our water was water, first of all, flowed across streams and creek beds that had little crystals. And you've heard of a bubbling brook, like it makes that fun, happy sound. The water actually is happy as it is going across these shapes. The water takes on the imprint of the shape that it is flowing across, and it has fluid dynamics that have a memory of how fun it felt to flow across those rocks. And of course, it also picks up trace minerals as it's doing so. And then it usually goes into an underground cistern, like a well or something like that, that is shaped like this. And it's like the womb, and the water sits there, and it receives information from the earth and is imprinted with a truthfulness beyond words. And then when you drink it, that water sustains you. If you've ever been lucky enough to go to Mount Shasta in California, that place has the most amazing water. There are some natural springs that you can go and collect water, but there's also just a public spigot in the center of town. It's a very, very small town there. And you just go to the main square, and there's a spigot where you can fill up your water jugs. That water is the most amazing water. And when people drink it, they're like, this is sustaining me on deeper energetic and spiritual levels that I've never had before. And I'm like, yes, that is water the way that we're all supposed to drink water, as opposed to water that comes from your municipal sewage treatment, water cleansing power plant, and then flows through copper pipes at 90-degree angles, and then comes out of your faucet, which is another 90-degree angle, and also has many different chemicals added to it. Chlorine is kind of like a health thing not health, but a sanitary thing to be able to prevent pathogens. But then fluoride is out and out neurotoxin. So they add a bunch of chemicals to it, and it goes through 90-degree angles. And that is not really life-affirming water, not just in the sense that it might contain contaminants, but in the sense that it lacks information. does not contain the information of life that we all require, that goes inside of your body and speaks to your cells and says, hey, be shaped like this. Let me go further. So in the structuring of your body, so that you're structured like all these perfect hexagons, I'm turning away from you again. This is like the most disorganized day I've ever had with you guys, because I'm getting a painting. This is another older painting that I did that was from that same era when I did Bridge Between Squares and Hexagons. This is what your body actually looks like. It's a series of, you can see that these are kind of like diamond crystalline structures that get smaller and smaller and smaller, and they all fit together in these perfect ways. Just trying to hold it so that you can see the light and the complexity of the pattern of what I have here. This is your diamond body. And that is how you're actually supposed to be structured. And when you are structured like this, that is how you are shaped correctly to go through a frequency door. So you kind of like go through this opportunity portal, and everything in you is aligned with everything that is in the portal, and you're able to come out the other side successfully. That is what it is. So it's different than like a rectangular script. You don't have to be a rectangle to go through a rectangular shaped door. You know what I mean? But I'm talking about something that is really more like a lock and a key mechanism, where you must be shaped the right way to be able to integrate and go through and then come out the other side. And all of that is intentional, so that the right things go through and come out the other side. So that's the whole point of going through this metamorphose, being able to travel interdimensionally, and achieving what is your diamond body. I'm looking at my notes to make sure, because I'm kind of jumping around a lot. Okay, yeah, you're so what you're doing is, that's a good way for me to say it. In this class, I call it the little ant moment, because what you have, remember that little ant that's a time ant, and it walks on the flat surface of time, and it's you. And the moment that the little ant is like, oh, wait, there's something here that I can't get past. I go to here, then there's a blockade. I can't get over to here where I need to go. But what if you can jump up and over? That's the little ant moment. That is literally the definition. That is gaining an additional degree of freedom, gaining an additional dimension, and it's a shift in perception to be able to even comprehend or consider that there is someplace other than the flat time plane that you could access and become empowered through transiting through that area. That is what it is to gain an additional dimension. That is what it is to travel interdimensionally. That is what the Merkaba actually is. And that is what you do, why it's worth it to make these efforts. So your cells of your body, what gives them structure? Now I'll just draw something for you. I found my pen. Here, let's get a good color. So let's say these are your cell membranes, and I chose orange because your cell membranes are actually made out of a fatty substance. That's not very well drawn, but just give me some love and acceptance. These pens don't always work that perfectly. Cell membranes are fatty, all right? And then the stuff that is inside of and surrounding the cells and their fats, this is aqueous or watery. And you guys know oil and water don't mix. And so these two things don't mix together, but they form patterns and structures. So in your body, you might think, well, hey, it's this stuff over here. This is what is giving my body its structure. Like, you know, your skin has structure, your muscles have structure. You, of course, have the armature of your skeleton, but you also have everything around your skeleton, all of the muscles and all the organs that are around your skeleton. What gives them structure? Everybody thinks the cell membrane. No, it is not the cell membrane. That is a fatty tissue that is kind of like jiggly jello. Jello does not have very much structure. What gives your body structure is this. It's actually your water that is inside of your body. So let's get another watercolor. So when you make, wait, let me get an even better, I'm trying to make a distinction here. When you make the waters of your body shaped in these perfect 60-degree angles, I know that you think like, am I making the water Jewish? No, and it's not affiliated with the nation of Israel either. I'm trying to show you that these are like these hexagonal 6-pointed water crystals, that is what ends up happening out here. And then even in here, these little tiny ones, right? Little tiny ones that are inside of here. And that's that painting that I showed you, and they all integrate perfectly. That is what gives your body structure. So structuring the water that you drink helps your cellular waters and fluids to be structured, and that helps your whole entire body to be structured, and not just to be structured, but to have a form of integrity. And that the little ant moment of being able to jump into a higher dimension is a muscle that is developed, that is muscle of perception. Doing stuff for your body's cellular structure helps you to build and access that muscle of perception. That is just like what the artists needed their audience to exercise to be able to make it to the more complex compositions. They had to first do a small weightlifting and comprehend something that has depth, and then do another small weightlifting and understand like the layers of the mid, foreground and background, and then do more weightlifting in order to be able to decipher and read what is even happening in a painting. And that happened in a generation, but that it's like once that ground was broken, or once that precedent was established in human society, it then became normalized. That then became something that everyone finds very, very regular and very, very unsurprising. Like, of course, when I look at this painting, or when I look at a TV screen, something like that, I'm going to look at it as if there's depth inside of the flatness, as if it is a window that I'm looking into. And then you're able to know and effectively interpret what you're looking at, all right? So right now you guys are looking at time as a flat thing. You're looking at time and you haven't had your Renaissance moment of bringing your consciousness into reading and interpreting your the frequency structures that you're looking at as if they are of a higher dimensional nature. And also, you guys are in a low information environment. You're in a high distraction environment, but you should be saturated with information. You should be in an environment where everything is so completely truthful that everything that you look at and imprint upon and absorb is giving more structure to you. And instead, right now in the world that you're in, which is part of why I'm here, which is why I'm so protective of you, is that I'm like, that is not structure, and that is not structure, and that is not structure. A lot of the frequencies that are here and stimulations that are here that are non-optical light are not helping you to be structured. In fact, I would even say that they are a type of antithesis to structure, that they have a disintegration quality, a destructuring quality, and not only non-information, but a disinformation. That's what lies are, or false light, something that has disinformation, that's not truthful. So you have to make, in this world, a concerted effort to do things like remove disinformation from your body. I do a lot for protecting myself from disinformation with these crystals that would go in my energy field all the time, and creating these force fields of protection around me and around others too, and around this whole entire planet. You must block out and remove the stuff that is not informative stimulation from the body. And then you have to tell a new story to your cellular structure. That is the true story of how you're supposed to be shaped, and how you're supposed to look at and interpret or read the raw information of the world that you're submerged in. So imagine if you went into Renaissance artists, whatever, art studio, let's do it that way, and not a museum. Say you go into their art studio and they've been working on perspective, and they've got a painting that's up on the easel, and they're like, this is the thing, it's going to blow your mind, you're going to see the world in a whole new way. And you're there, but there's also like a pile of dirty rags on the ground, half-eaten sandwich, paintbrushes everywhere, because you know artists, right? And then all sorts of stuff that's not information. That is not actually what you came there to look at and have your mind blown by. So you actually have to be told, look at the thing on the easel. That's the thing that's actually got information. Like, don't look at these old coffee cups or whatever, used up oil rags or something like that. That's not the information. So it's essential in how you are imprinting your body to be able to clear away stuff that is not truthful, that may be active disinformation, and also stuff that is simply not relevant. Like, don't know, that's dirty coffee cups, that's an old sweater, that's a pile of rags. That's the thing you actually want to be tuning in on in terms of truthfulness and frequency. So you structure your water and you put information into it in just the polygonal form that the molecules are arranged. But then you can also do a lot of wonderful things like what I do with blessing it, speaking truth into it, putting information into it that you want it to absorb. And you guys know the work from Dr. Emoto. He is not on Earth anymore, but he experimented with like writing the word love on a piece of paper and putting it against a glass of water or a bowl of rice. And then also writing words like hate or something like that, something that is a negative and even derogatory word, and putting that on water and then freezing it and looking at the formation of the ice crystals. And the ones that were, like loving and we would say like positive, pleasant aphorisms made beautiful, perfect ice crystals like my painting. And the ones that were saying things like, like hate you or whatever, die, that those made these incredibly grotesquely malformed ice crystals. That the water is imprinted with not only the word, but the intention. The intention is carried in the structure of the water. So when you are making structured water to drink, put intention into it for what you want and need and desire in terms of your physical health, the health and well-being of people around you and in your community, the events you would like to experience, the type of world you would like to be in. This is a act of power. So we're not just talking about like, drink some water and you'll be less thirsty. Creating water, preparing it is actually what I do. So I don't cook water, clearly. But what I do is I prepare my water. I prepare my water for the day. And when just like, chopping a salad is preparing food, even though you're not actually cooking it, you are preparing it for yourself. You must prepare your water in the same way. So you start off with filtered water, of course, that doesn't have fluoride and all sorts of negative things in it. And then you do this whole process of mineralizing it and structuring it and putting information into it. And also the earth, the happy, positive, natural world also puts information into that water. And then when you drink that water, you become more highly informed. And when I'm talking about your diamond body, call it your information body. That's good information. Your light body is your information body. Literally, that's what you're doing. You're cultivating how much light and information you have in your body. Okay, so I already did some of this from last week, but we'll do some recap because it's good to emphasize things again. It's like a musician, you learn through repetition. I told you about the Vajrayana body. That's what they call it in Asian culture, the Buddhist diamond body of indestructible light. That's the idea, that it is indestructible. That would also be considered uncorruptible information. You ascend as you transcend the density of the physical realm. You rearrange not only the physicality of your matter in your body, but your rearranged matter as you become a crystalline structure in your water and in the way that your carbon is fit together, brings you into a higher dimensional, less dense realm. That's what's on the other side of the door. You get shaped in the right way, go through a frequency door, and then you end up in a less dense realm, gaining a higher dimension by folding the molecules of your body into a new state. And key point here, into a non-destructible form. That's what the Vajrayana body is called, the indestructible light body, something that is eternal, that has a presence and a coherence that does not devolve. So this is why, to circle back or return to what I started off with, the initial concept of sharing today, that some materialists who are quite reductionist about the body, and they look at it as, this is just a meat suit and it's just made of a bunch of twitching muscle fibers and goo, and it does stuff sometimes. And then also, key point, then sometimes it doesn't do stuff and it stops doing stuff and it doesn't move around anymore. That's called death. That whole mentality has to do with looking at things as if they are in this reductionist way, kind of not well structured and not anti-entropy events. So the materialistic view says, pretty much like you're as fit and as healthy as you possibly can be when you're a child. Suckers, it's all downhill from there, suckers, right? And then eventually you're going to poop out and go kaput, and that's dead. And that you're, continually losing your life force throughout your life. It's actually a very, what is the word for it? Like depressive viewpoint. Because it's like, wow, like, if you're whatever, 48 or something like that, you're like, it's not going to get any better. Like, this is as good as it gets, and it's only going to get worse from here. Like, it's pretty bad, like that's not a good way of thinking about it. I am here to show you and exemplify to you that is not the truth at all. So yes, no, your body can absolutely be cultivated and regenerated to contain and to circulate more light that then actually even comes into it. That is what it is to have a brilliant body, to be a diamond body. Light comes into you and refracts internally in complex patterns that are considered beautiful and pleasing, and then comes outward with sparkles in a form of brilliance. And that means you can magnify light. More light or more information comes out. Let's use the words. More information and more wisdom and more sentience and more organizational principle comes out of the body than went into the body. That is the opposite of the materialistic viewpoint that says, hey, kid, this is as good as it gets. It's only going to be less and less. So if you put in 10 units and you're only going to get 8 units out, and you're going to continually lose 2 units until you fall over and you're dead and you're kaput. So a huge part of this is the fulfillment of expectations. So humanity has come out of a time when your expectations of death and degradation were absolutely fulfilled, and you had very, very few models or living examples of an anti-entropy event. But I'm telling you, you've got one great mentor or living mentor that's so easy to see. It's the sun in the sky. Yes. The sun is an anti-entropy event. And, the objective materialist might say, but it will eventually lose its processes and devolve and become a black hole. But what the sun is doing as a very not fully organized ball of plasma light is learning and emitting light beams that are highly organized light beams that are considered the sun's light body. More information comes out of the sun than went into the sun. What the sun is doing in terms of radiating and illuminating and creating life, and then experiencing the feedback on the life that is created, generates more intelligence, more sentience, more orderliness, more wisdom, not less. Beams of organized light come out of the sun. The sun is not a totally organized presence, but the beams of light are totally organized. The sun is still a somewhat dense being. It's plasma, which is kind of hovering at the edge of what we call something that is matter and not quite purely energy. It's dense enough to have a big, giant gravity well stretching down the fabric of reality into a big, giant way that holds together a whole entire solar system. Light does not stretch gravity in that way. So if it were totally organized and full of pure information on the level of a beam of light, you would not have gravity stretched in that sense. So beams of light come from the sun. They are more organized than the sun. That is therefore an anti-entropy event. You're looking at something getting smarter. You're looking at something getting more sentient and developing more information. And you are miniature light beings and miniature suns. Get it? This is your light body. And what do I talk about in this class? The circulatory patterns that you go through as you are exploring this area that is the time vortex here, where you learn and grow. You learn how not to hit the membrane of death. You might circulate through that area quite often as you're trying to be like, what is the right note to play? That wasn't the right note. Go back, try again. Pedro, hat tip to you. Go to G-O-T-A. Game over, try again. Wah, wah, and Pac-Man kind of dissolves down and then goes back to the beginning. Damn, Pac-Man, I'm here again. I'm ready to try it again. That's you guys. That's everybody trying to navigate the area known as the vortex of life. And when you do it correctly, even though life is more than a disassociated video game, so don't disassociate in that way, because it matters. The people's lives and your interactions and death and suffering actually matters. They're supposed to avoid the membrane of death. But these multiple attempts to become more focused, more coherent, and more intelligent represent an anti-entropy event. You're not actually starting off at the smartest that you will ever be. You're actually, when you start off as a tiny infant, not knowing a lot in terms of how to navigate time. And you have to do a lot of learning. So this learning was meant to be done with higher self-guidance, with the activation of your pineal gland, being able to see fully through your windshield while you drive your car, knowing where the F you're going. And everybody here has been flying blind instead. Windshield of the car is almost totally encrusted with ice or some kind of muddy incrustation. You can't see clearly, and you are trying to go in a positive life direction, but without being able to see, often driving off a cliff. And it's not that it's a cruel, unfeeling cosmos that's like, make these people, here's mean cosmos is like this, make these people drive off a cliff over and over. It's not like that at all. It's more like, wow, I want these people to drive directly down the center of the highway of life and not ever to drive over a cliff. But that seems to be happening because of these degradations that have been done to humanity, that have taken away your inner vision. And is a lot of why I am here, in order to not just give you information. Like, that's a very ineffective way to be able to do this. If I was like everybody's GPS and I said, you drive over there, you drive over there, you drive over there, that's like very inefficient. What I'm actually here to do is to get your GPS to actually work again. Clear off everybody's windshield, clear off everybody's pineal gland, make it so that you can actually see. That is what the action of the flying rainbow lasagna is, and what it does, and what you are doing in your body. As you are achieving greater levels of light and less entropy, you're getting more wisdom and smarter because you can see more. It's kind of amazing. That is what light is. You know, I'm down here because I put my water on the floor instead of putting it next to my computer. You're becoming smarter and wiser through your experiences exploring different timelines on the time field. And being able to see and directly ingest that light is essential for you to be able to guide yourself, because also everybody's trajectory is unique. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, that you can't just send out the overall broadcast, everybody turn left on Tuesday, then everybody turn right on Wednesday, then everybody jump up and down on Thursdays and Fridays. You know, you can't do that, because everybody has to do their own unique patterning. And that's part of the complexity of time and the wonderful encryption that happens due to the uniqueness and complexity of time, where it's a much stronger system. I joke about this too, like some plants like potatoes and bananas are cloned, or they are constantly grown from cuttings. And the plants that are grown from cuttings, like, they're very vulnerable. You have one blight, it wipes out your whole entire crop, because there's not genetic diversity. And that is what happened with the Irish potato famine. And that is a problem actually that's ongoing with bananas everywhere. So with humans, you have billions and billions of you, and you each have a unique energy signature, you each have a unique DNA presence, and every single one of you, that your uniqueness is part of the encryption of the system, because it's so unbelievably complex. But that's why the answer as to where to go is not a one-size-fits-all answer. Some people need to turn left, some people need to turn right, some people need to jump up and down. It's not the same for everyone, and it's constantly shifting. So each one of you has to have your own inner guidance system fully functional, so that way you can know what is right for you. And this also brings us towards a discussion about levels of personal responsibility in the world, where you're like, okay, like, that guy says to turn left, but that guy says to turn right. And like, what is the moral upshoot of all of this? And what is the right thing to do? And all of that. And the answer is, the true ascended answer for all of these is that you must follow your own inner guidance. that you can't do somebody else's recipe on your life exactly, because that's their recipe that is completely right for them and not necessarily completely right for you. So you must in every way maintain your complete boundaries as an individual, even while you recognize your lives are intertwined, but the recipe of what's right and what's right in each moment for you is going to be different than what's right for that guy over there. So this is true in terms of diet, what you eat. It's not right. Not everybody is a vegetarian. Not everybody is a pure carnivore. Sometimes you eat a chocolate eclair. Sometimes you do not. It depends on what is the right thing for you in the moment. And then you follow those inner directives. So when your higher faculties are activated, this then becomes a fun game throughout the day. Like if you're in a store and there's all these different oranges, you're going to buy an orange. Which one is the one for you? And the answer is it's the one that has kind of a little sparkle to it. You're like, that's the one for me. Or anything, a pastry out of a pastry case, or a piece of meat out of the meat case, or a box of cereal that's off of the shelf, or whatever it is that you're buying. There's one that's meant for you in that moment. And then it's not going to be the same one next time, because next time everything's going to be different. And you're going to have to say, what is the food that is filled with light for me in this store, in this time, place, at this moment? And then you look around with your higher faculties and you get the information, and then you're able to eat the stuff and align with the stuff that is the most light for you and right for you. So what is right for you is a recipe and an answer that is constantly shifting. And then you can't portray yourself or project it upon others, because they have their own ever shifting, epicentric, where they are in the center of their own journey as well, set of directives that they must follow. And this recognition is what really brings us into what humans call the age of Aquarius. You can sing that song from the band called The Fifth Dimension if you want to, if we want to get silly, if it's that time in class, absolutely, age of Aquarius. The age of Aquarius is the age of self-responsibility, when you don't have someone outside of you, like a nutritionist or a health coach, saying, always eat this, never eat this, listen to me, and then you'll be healthy and fit. But when you have self-direction and self-responsibility that tells you, I want to eat this at this time, and that feels right to me. And then it's not always going to be an orange from the store. It's not always going to be that orange from the store. It's not always going to be a piece of fruit. Sometimes it will be the next thing. It will be different. That is what the age that we are entering into is really all about. A sense of the age of self-responsibility, where there is not an external authority figure, like the 10 Commandments, saying always and never, do this, don't do this. Parameters that are set like a type of recipe for goodness that you must follow, whether or not they feel right to you, whether or not they feel right in the moment. And you must, at this point in your soul development, create your own parameters for guidance that is not just your ego being like, yes, like ice cream is definitely what I need to eat right now. Ice cream is always the answer. You know what I mean? But that you, when you really listen, you're like, sometimes I need this and sometimes I need this. And that is something that you willingly agree to, like the musicians that are in a symphony. The conductor says, tap, 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 please listen to me. I'm guiding you guys through all of this. And you're like, I choose to listen. Like, if you don't want to be in a symphony, don't be in a symphony, play on your own, but don't sit there amidst a bunch of others who are trying to work together harmonically. So when you're in this age of self-responsibility, you are having an inner guidance that tells you what to do at all times. It's not just in terms of the nourishing of your body. I just use that as an example because it's very clear, with food and things like that, but it's also what you need to do. Daily activities, approaches to self-sustenance and commerce, human dynamics, and also you're holding your furry overlord cat. That's also part of your dynamics of how you integrate with other species and other forms of life in your beautiful planet here. So the parameters for what is right for you and what is right in each moment are always shifting. And right now we come into, I'm sorry if it was a cat or a dog, I couldn't tell. Coming into levels of self-responsibility where you do what is right for your unique perspective. And then that is what brings you to greater levels of self-knowledge. Because when it's just one recipe and everybody follows the recipe, and sometimes it kind of works nutritionally and sometimes it doesn't, and you just kind of, you're painting in broad strokes, you're not really working in these levels of exactitude and uniqueness, because not everything is the same and not everything is right for everyone across all times. So what is happening is you've entered into a new level of reality where the larger paintbrush of generalities is now not enough. And you have to move into the tiny little sable paintbrush for details of specifics on a soul level. How to be a good person, and what does it mean to be a good person, and in which direction is God, is answer that is a question that is answered, rather, is a question that is answered for you, in this case, by your own self-direction, not by a larger impersonal set of rules. That is everything to do with the restructuring of your body. Because as you restructure your body and are able to achieve this brilliant and indestructible diamond body, you become full of more light or information and full of more sentience, and you are better able to perceive and to navigate where you are supposed to go in time. So this is no longer generalities, like just kind of, generally be in the right place at the right time and generally doing the right thing, and that's okay. No, now you actually have a greater difficulty level in the spiritual gym of attainment. And that reason for that is very directly related, not even a metaphor or loose analogy. Your muscles get tired and bored if you always do the same amount of exercise, and they need to be challenged. You always have to be working on what is the new thing that you can do in order to grow greater levels of strength. This is on a soul level. All of us, each one of us, need to be challenged so that you're not just running on the hamster wheel or running in circles and not getting anywhere in terms of your spiritual attainment. You must be challenged with new situations and then come up with responses to those situations. And you must be able to go into levels of uniqueness in your problem solving and how you approach these challenges to your body, to your soul, to your life, and towards staying alive. The answer is not the same in all circumstances. Wait, Chief came over here, and so that's why I want to give Chief some attention. The answer is not always the same. The answer is different all the time, and that is how the plasma being of the sun is constantly gaining more information. That your journey of becoming more full of light and information and intelligence and wisdom that you're learning in your life adds up to the sun becoming wiser and more complex in its viewpoint and having greater levels of capacitation and ability in what the sun is doing. So big takeaway, everything's learning and evolving, including you, and your evolution on a soul level trickles upward or reflects directly upward to the larger light being and light network that you are connected to, that is also growing in greater levels of wisdom. Okay, so let's talk, because I did this last week, but let's just do a brief overview of what the Merkaba is. Merkaba, it is a sacred set of syllables that comes to us from ancient Egypt, but the ancient Egypt was actually a cultural outgrowth of the vestigial traces of the antediluvian culture that we know as Atlantis. And it means literally light body vessel. Sorry, if you hear beeping, let me just restart my treadmill. This happens once per class now. Okay, get going. All right, so it is an envisionment. So the things that you envision are light. I've used this example too. If I ask you to envision a purple cupcake, close your eyes, everyone, and envision a purple cupcake. You are painting a purple cupcake with light that literally emanates from your mind. One day we're going to get to another dimension. There's going to be all these purple cupcakes, and you're going to be like, what? Like, Aurora, you asked us to imagine purple cupcakes. We did. And then they're here. I know. So I hope, just make them delicious, guys. If you're going to envision that, just make them good. All right. The Merkaba is this star tetrahedron envisionment that comes from within you and surrounds you. And it is a living force field, so you have to continually add energy to it and keep it going. Just like every day, like, you do basic body hygiene, you brush your teeth and you wash your face and you do different things every day as body maintenance. There are other things that you do with energy that are considered energetic hygiene, and creating and sustaining your Merkaba is part of that. So this is something that was like the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s of how to be alive in the antediluvian world known as Atlantis. It is a spinning force field of energy around the physical form and also around the pineal gland. So what's the difference? You have this star tetrahedron shape around the wholeness of your being, yes, but then you can also envision one inside. Your pineal gland is in the midbrain, or the area that's like the cleft between the two hemispheres of your brain, and kind of like directly behind your eyes, bridge of nose, or forehead area, and also roughly intersecting where your eyeglasses go inward to the sides, like your temporal lobe, and also, back behind your prefrontal cortex. The gland itself is a very delicate piece of equipment that's like an antenna that not only sends light out, but receives light. Not only sends information out, but also receives information. Not only stimulates reality and generates and projects reality, but is acted upon by reality. And when you're like an artist like me, in the process of making things in your art studio, you don't want a bunch of not only distractions, but you don't want a bunch of things that are hijackers and misappropriation is the word I always come up with. Hangers on who want to misappropriate your wonderful creative actions. You are imagining and envisioning reality. You should be doing so in your own states of freedom and divine connection. And there should not be anything else that comes along and is like, oh, I think you should do this. Then here's what you do as an artist. And then here's what you do as an artist in reality. So if you're painting a painting somewhere, maybe you're painting outside, it's called en plein air, you're going to paint the mountain, flowers, landscapes, whatever it is. This happens all the time. You're there, you're at your easel, you're painting, and some looky-loo comes along and is like, oh, interesting, nice painting you got going on there. You know what would be great? What if you painted like a big giant red bird over here? And like, you as an art, like, that's not appropriate for that guy that wants you to paint something into your painting that's going to please him. What you do, instead of being like, get away from me, like, you rude, boorish, person, you shouldn't be here. You say, why don't you put that on your painting? Like, you paint the giant red bird on your painting. And that is how you do it. Be like, this is me. I am painting this on my painting. It is the way I like it. And if you think that something should be done differently or other, you do that on your painting. And then this is the beginning of like basic energetic boundaries, even though when we get into layers of continuity of consciousness, boy, my brain is really not connecting to my mouth today. I think it's because I'm overtired and I drove like 9 hours yesterday, got home late. Continuity of consciousness. You're part of a continuum. And what that means is, well, like, technically my painting and your painting are part of the same larger painting. But for right now, we're coming out of these levels of individuation where if I'm standing there at an easel, someone else comes along and says, paint this for me, I think I will like it better. It's totally appropriate and as polite as their interjection to offer to them, to remind them that they should do that in their own artwork. And that means in their own life. So it's kind of like, I do me, you do you. Thank you very much. That's the way it should be. But when you get to higher levels of the continuity of consciousness, like technically your painting is, this is me with my uncomfortable face. Well, technically your painting is my painting. And then therefore, if you're going to paint something on your painting that I don't like, I do get to say something about it. And if you're going to do something on my painting, I get to say something about it. Because now we're talking about things like DNA. And there are some things that people have been doing on their personal paintings that are unmentionables that I will just, allude to, but that what is going on. That's like, that is their painting, but their painting is part of a continuity of all of our paintings together, and is definitely affecting all of us. So, it's truthful. Like when you do healing in your body and in your ancestral lineage, you do good things for you, it radiates outward, but also if you do something that negatively impacts on your DNA, that also impacts everyone. So it's reciprocal, it's mutual. Hold on one second. Someone's going to get some FOOD. Lives intertwined, DNA reciprocally influencing itself and one another, and our various individuated lives really being very, very connected and influencing one another. So then it's not that easy to say, like, I'm going to do my thing and you do your thing, because we really must be more responsible to each other and consider, like, what if I do this to me? Is it just my choice for me? Is it also a choice that impacts other people? But that also requires and relates to levels of self-awareness and being a good roommate or housemate in life that not everybody has. You know what I mean? Like some people, you might be a roommate or a housemate, and they might be like, maybe if I play my music too loud, that will disturb other people in the household. I better put on my headphones or something like that. But some people don't think that way. And they don't even know, and they need to be told, like, hey, like, something, we can all hear your music and you have to be quiet down because we're trying to go to bed, or whatever it is. Don't make a bad smell. Don't leave a mess. Don't leave garbage around. Be respectful of other people. Like, not everybody is there. These are literally the lessons that you are learning as part of your individual and collective ascension process. That not everything, but so many of the things that people might think are a silly tangent or an obstacle to the actual experience of ascension, you're going to start to learn that that is actually the meat and potatoes of what you're supposed to be learning. So like within the past 3 years or so, if you've been like squabbling with a roommate, or trying to figure out your boundaries in a housemate situation or something like that, it's not just like, I have to do the dishes and figure this out. Like, can't I just go ascend? That's what I'm really interested in. Doing the dishes and figuring out how to live effectively in community while not losing yourself is part of the journey of ascension, because ascended masters maintain their individuality, are not boring or flavorless, and also are perfectly harmonically integrated with the rest of the band or the symphony of life. And I just told you with that explanation or allegory again, a conductor who conducts musicians. Like if you get into the Philharmonic, you want to be there. You audition hard to be able to be there. And if the conductor tells you, like, play more softly, you don't give the conductor attitude, like, play as loud as I want. You're like, I am lucky to be here. I will very happily follow your directives. It becomes beyond being a power trip or power abuse or a struggle of power dynamics. So you definitely are coming out of a world where there's so much power abuse. I recognize the need for self-sovereignty and healing of power dynamics. But again, when you get up to these higher levels of consciousness, what you are there, you are part of the VIP lounge, you are in the band. You don't have to struggle against each other. You don't have to posture against each other. You don't have to be like, who's bigger, who's more, who's better. And you don't have to have a struggle in the power dynamics between you and the great, supermassive black hole at the center of your galaxy, or whoever is orchestrating these much, much larger events. You're like, wow, you're orchestrating all these much, much larger events. I am so happy to be a part of these events. I willingly participate. It's not giving up your free will at all. It's not being a slave or an automaton. Again, I recognize you're coming out of this perilous world where people are attempting to be enslaved and automated. So that's not an issue at these other levels. So you don't have to be so like starchy or like have so much like pushback on things, because if someone tells you to do something or requires something from you, you can be much more accommodated, because you're like, oh yeah, like we're all working together. But right now you're in this world where sadly everyone is not working together, and so then you create possibly these reflex reactions where you're like, don't tell me what to do, blah blah blah, and like, shut up, go away. But that's not what it's like at a higher dimensional level. At a higher dimensional level, you're like joyful and joyous to participate, and to be shaped the right way. And so, I mean, that's literally what you're doing with your lifetime attainment of getting your body to be shaped like this. This doesn't happen by accident. This happens very, very much on purpose. And when you spend your whole life or biological life cultivating yourself to be able to be like that, then you are not at odds with the results of your efforts. You're like, hooray, like I spent a lot, it's like I went to the gym, I exercised a lot. Like I'm not at odds with the body that I grew as a result of this. Okay, so it is special to rearrange the facets of a star tetrahedron into an octahedron, because the octo contains both the 60 and 90 degree. Told you about that already. The flying rainbow lasagna and the Merkaba. These two things are intimately related, but not synonymous and not the same. So the concept of the Merkaba and the star tetrahedron shape predates and is in existence before the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna. But both of these things count as interdimensional portal shapes, both things that can be envisioned or created with the non-physical anatomy of your pure imagination, the energy presence that both allow for greater movement of consciousness and greater degrees of freedom. They both, and we got another one, so many things in my brain right now. They both involve perception in order to add that additional degree of freedom. And that's why I keep on bringing you back to art school and telling you about the art history and changes of human perception in terms of creating and inventing perspective. That it is an aspect of perception to change from a star tetrahedron into an octahedron. It is an act of perception to change from a toroidal shape into a flying rainbow lasagna. That is how the real transiting happens, or the real movement happens, not moving in a linear place from point A to point B, as the linear analytical mind expects, but instead a rearrangement of what you see in the world, putting it through a different interpretation filter or lens, and then in doing so, you are transported. So I'm not really that much of an advocate for the use of psychedelics, just because I think largely they bring people to like the bad neighborhoods of the lower astral, where you don't really get like real insight and stuff like that. I know it's a huge generalization, but that's why I'm not really an advocate for it. And I've done all of my things like with nothing, nothing stronger than cannabis in my system in terms of being able to see these things. But I have to protect my brain, and I'm definitely non-neurotypical in like what I have going on in my particular body container here. So just understand, I'm not judgmental, but I'm just not a total advocate, because some people look at my stuff and they're like, oh, like this is what I see when I'm tripping, and then this is what this is. And I'm like, well, if you do it right, then yes, this is what you see when you're tripping, and that this is the accuracy of the place that you go. But I'll also tell you like some of the shapes and patterns that people see when they're on some of these synthetic drugs and things that are not pure don't give you the real pattern. That you have to kind of watch out what restaurant you eat at, because not all of it contains pure light. And then sometimes what the real reason why I'm not a huge advocate for the psychedelic movement right now is a lot of people take all sorts of different substances, go to a place that they think is an informative library of information in the higher dimensions, but is actually not informative. And they get imprinted with stuff that's not truthful. And then they come back and they're like, I had a vision, let me share it with you. And they are kind of full of something that is not accurate, and that it's affecting them, it destabilizes them, and it then destabilizes their community. So you have a huge responsibility if you have a vision to share it accurately, and to use those powers and those gifts in a wise way, and how you share it, be responsible. And the information is going to affect other people when you give it to them, and how they perceive it. I'm not even accurately articulating this, but even some people's self stories about who they are, what they are. Like they might go into a psychedelic experience get all sorts of information about them being like from another planet, from another world, or what their job is to be here. And they come back and they have a whole different story of what they are. Just please recognize that my experience of being a walk-in and everything that I did with Flying Rainbow Lasagne had nothing at all to do with molecular assist in any way, that it was 100% without anything like that going on. And in that sense has a profound validity to me, that I knew what was happening was something more than something that was merely chemical or molecular. Please be aware of that, so that what I have experienced was just really on a different level. And that, yeah, and then I have a obligation and positive form of duty to share it accurately. And that is what it is to be a visionary. All right. So that just, I'm seeing some not totally responsible envisioning techniques and sharings. So some people also have asked me, like, what if I did it in the past? How does that affect me now? I really literally look at the psychedelics as just training wheels. There are things that don't even get you to go fully through the membrane. So if your hand is like a rocket ship and this bottom part of your screen is like the membrane, that psychedelics get you to go like this far. That's why it's really just into the astral realm, but they don't get you to go all the way this way, which is all the way to the ocean of total information. You just get a little bit of information, and people just get a little bit of information. They're like, I've had a vision, and they share it with everyone. And it's not necessarily accurate, or it's not necessarily shared in the right way. And that's because you kind of have to wait and cultivate yourself to have these inner visions when they come, you know, without training wheels and without the molecular support to make it happen. It happens because it happens. And that's how you know it's the right time and the right way to do this. So this relates absolutely to the leap of consciousness. Here, let me read from my notes. Okay, so Merkaba is based upon equilateral triangles and hexagonal grid. And I got all about your diamond body. Diamond body is indestructible. It's a vehicle for consciousness that will bring you into the next world. That is not synonymous with a mortality event. Please be aware of that. And it's a key leap of consciousness. That means see the interpenetration of the cube grid with the hexagonal grid, and see the chakras integrated with the flower of life. That is the leap of consciousness. And what that means is that you're no longer interpreting reality as bifurcated. We have spirit versus matter, or the ethereal world of pure energy that is not tangible versus matter that is tangible to our five senses. So much of what I teach about in Path of Light on Saturday mornings is about really a cognitive bridge for you to be able to look at light in your environment in things that are usually defined as matter. Like glucose is light. I'm looking at a tree out my window. The long cellulose fiber chains in the tree that help it to stand up like this instead of being like moss that just kind of goes across the ground, that is light. So plants create glucose. Long glucose chains create cellulose, that creates wood. Driving along the side of the road, looking at these trees that are made 100% out of this light information. And that is a different way of interpreting what you're seeing all around you. What was formerly defined as matter due to the materialistic viewpoint now is viewed as light. And in Path of Light, I walk people through a series of comprehension steps until they get to the understanding that light is a continuum, where you have light that's in the form of flowing optical light that then changes to be light that is stored as something like glucose or cellulose and then is released later. In my body, I'm releasing light right now. I ate a bunch of glucose before I did my walking on the treadmill and talking with you here in class. I'm releasing light. I'm releasing it as calories and as infrared heat, and also as words that are coming out of my mouth and neurological signals. And sorry, I keep on saying, and I'm clearly very overtired too from road weary from driving so much yesterday. The leap of consciousness of reinterpreting information that is around you. Information comes to you when you're a little tiny child and you interpret it through this lens. They start to teach you at school. And in the present world, it is a world of objective materialism. And that's usually how they teach children. But even before then, your worldview is shaped by parents and caregivers, because little 3-year-olds ask a lot of mommy, daddy, why questions, and 4-year-olds do. Mommy, daddy, why this? Why that? Why this? Like, to the point, like, you can have fatigue. You're like melting. Like, don't ask me any more questions. Like, here, just eat food. Like have like some whatever, like Flintstones pasta shapes. Just eat something. Don't ask me any more questions. Because they are trying to develop a view of the world and figure out how things are shaped and what is the causality structure. And so even if you're not a scientist, you largely live in a scientific, objective, materialist world, that you imprint that upon your children. So of course, if you lived in an animistic or pagan culture, your children asked you, like, how does this happen? You'd be like, oh, like, it is balanced on the back of a turtle. Or, you would just have a totally different answer than the answer that comes out of objective materialistic science. All of these are filters and story structures through which you see and interpret the world around you. But going into levels of pure perception, when you make this leap of consciousness, you are able to pretty much write a new story, not write a random new story, but access reality and describe the integration of events in a different way. The leap of consciousness is the leap of the little ant that is no longer on a flat 2-dimensional time plane and now can understand and comprehend and perceive causality structures in a new and different way. The integration of your body that is made of carbon and water molecules and your body that is made out of pure time and possibilities and probabilities becomes an integration of these both valid reality structures, let's call it a different explanation of reality. A different explanation of reality. When children ask the questions, mommy, daddy, why? The answer is because this explanation of reality. When objective materialists consider certain questions, their answer is because this. But when you start to perceive time as this, and that this is the shape of your life, and that you have all of these multiple timelines and radiating time roads or possibility structures, and that the answer for why did this happen might not necessarily be something as simple as, a chemical chain reaction occurred, or a biomechanical event occurred, or molecular event occurred, or even something according to the laws of thermodynamics occurred. Those things might have occurred, but they might have been a secondary explanation, not the genesis of what actually happened. What actually happened was an event happened in time. Something happened and rearranged events in time. And that is what really happened. That then was exemplified as a biochemical, mechanical reaction or whatever, laws of larger bodies type of description of reality of the things that changed as a result of that. So the real answer, if you ask me in all of your innocence, like, why do things happen? The answer is because it's part of a timeline, because it's part of a series of events or a recipe of events that is part of a timeline. And I hope you can see we start to get beyond ethical moralism, where you're like always and nevers. If you're a good person, you always do this and you never do this. But when you're a good person, what you do also is you navigate timelines so that you achieve that perfectly focused state of being that is in line with the source, which is the destination. And that's what it is to be an ascended master. And then it's not a behavioral description, because the answer is being a good person means staying on the timeline where you don't die, and not being drawn into these peripheries and staying focused on the source and divine presence as your destination, and also as like the infinite home where you actually live. And that, like good nutrition, can look different at different times. Sometimes good nutrition means eating an orange. Sometimes it means eating a pastry. Sometimes it means eating protein, whatever it is, you eat the thing that is right for that moment. So in this expanded age of responsibility, you must go beyond prescriptions and recipes that are hard and fast, always and nevers, and set in stone, because that's not what navigating the time field is. What you're trying to do is to always refocus so that instead of going to the edge, you're going toward the center. And that's a different set of behavioralisms for everyone, and a different set of behavioralisms every day. Someday you're supposed to eat an orange, and some days you're supposed to eat whatever, peanut butter sandwich instead. It's different things, but it's not. And then if you try, it's not always the same. And then if you try to say, well, last Tuesday I did this, I'll do exactly the same thing again, that doesn't work. So you must be in a constant state of rapport and creation and newness and perception and responsiveness to the present context. That's what this higher faculty helps you to do. And my work with Lasagne is about getting people to get their higher faculties back online so you can guide yourself, not have an external authority figure telling you what to do. So I'm almost at the end of today's sharing, and definitely want to open the floor to any questions. So let me just make sure that I get through everything that's important in my notes. And to anyone who's new, again, welcome. All of my lecture notes that you see me squinting at over here on the side of my screen, I always share them either in the email that contains the invite for the class, or also in a compilation that's a PDF called the Flying Rainbow Lasagne Manual for Flight, that I almost always have as part of the descriptions in my video, but I'll make sure that it goes out, let's say, with the archive of this class, so that way you've got it. So you can always read my notes too. They are very ungrammatical, not in full English sentences, but they do contain the basics of the information of what came from my lessons from 10 years ago and what I'm trying to get across to people, but then also in an updated fashion, because the recipes that I wrote from 10 years ago have to be updated for right now. So what I have written down here is go through a consciousness portal where what is on the other side of the line or the demarcation of the threshold is not the same as what is on the other side of the line. You step into a new reality. We did that over this weekend. Stepped across the threshold that was not a linear threshold or boundary or something like that. It was a consciousness portal into a new level of experience and a new capacity to redefine that experience. Oh, and I haven't talked enough about this. In Flying Rainbow Lasagne, okay, so the seemingly empty space within the lasagna shape is the higher dimensional shape, all right? So this is big stuff. Where I'm wiggling my pen over here, this place that is would be considered the empty space within this shape is the higher dimensional space, because what we've taken is this shape and turned it so that it almost inside out by oscillating it up and down like this. What we've done is to create a space that is a negative space within that shape. And when energy flows around this shape, it flows around like this, like in a circular continuum. The only places where it can really do that effectively, I hope you can see the lighting conditions in here, is at the level of red. Let's try and hold this up so you can see. Red is where this outer perimeter connects. And then the other place where all of the little time cones converge is here at violet. Those are the two places where all of these vectors and forces come together. Red is the physical world, your physical body and physical place where there are tables, chairs, walls, artwork, faces with hair, all right? And then also at the source. That's the other place where everything comes together. So you have two options. Like, let's say you want to interact with a variety of forces and people and levels of consciousness and things that are in existence. You can either do that here at the 0th dimension, the house that everybody lives in, infinity point where everything is everything already, and you're there right now. And you can also do that in physical reality. Everything else exists as a bridge between those two places. And when energy goes across the lasagna, this edge that I'm highlighting with my pen is actually a series of interdimensional doorways. So you have energy that goes across this orange stripe, and then it gets to the edge. It does not fall to its doom, and it does not stop. What it has to do is it has to jump, if you can even see in these lighting conditions, but it has to jump a little bit from here down to the level that is down below it. It has to jump down here. It has to jump that much. And that jump that happens actually happens across no space. There's no space between here and here. There's no space between those two places. So it would be like going into a doorway and taking one step that might be 93 million miles long. And as soon as you go across and put your foot down, you've traveled 93 million miles, but it only felt like one step to you. That is how these energy patterns go. Like here, I'm going across green. I'm going across green. I stop here. I exit reality here and I jump down to green over here. And then I enter reality right down here. But that jump between here and here, to me, as the experiencer, does not feel like a very, very long fall at all. It just feels like a regular step. Don't even know that you're going across this whole huge interior space that is in no space, because it's no space because you didn't experience it. This is deep stuff. So that is the higher dimensional area or zone that is exemplified by the flying rainbow lasagna. Okay. How does this allow us to travel mentally in the same way that the Merkaba does? The Merkaba shield, so it's a shield for your pineal gland because you don't want someone else to come in and tell you what to paint on your painting, or even meanly to pick up your paintbrush and start painting stuff on your painting. That's a definite no-no. Protecting your electromagnetic emanator of ideas and ingester of energies from external sources. That's big stuff because that's what you have. A lot of stuff that's being forced into your body right now. So really, really, really work on envisioning the Merkaba as a protective force field around your pineal gland. And you can also envision it around all of the cellular structures in your body, the waters of your body, your nuclei, your physicality structures, and then also your time body. So that way, again, it is a shield. But specifically, this part of your body, just like your physical eyes, are very sensitive to light and very important as your navigation systems on your physical senses. Your pineal gland is hugely important in terms of its sensitivity to electromagnetism. And what I have written down here, your Merkaba is a shield for the pineal gland, protecting your electromagnetic emanator of ideas. That's what this is. Your pineal gland is an emanator of ideas, and it is influenced by stuff that is beamed into it. And over the past 2 years, humanity has had a lot of negative things beaming into its pineal gland and influencing it. And so clearing out those waters and clearing out those untruthful ideas is part of what must happen. And then also putting an effective force field and a shield so that your delicate equipment doesn't get exposed to those ideas and information in the first place is essential. And the things that have happened in terms of genetic modification of the human populace, that's part of where the wrong ideas come from, where the wrong ideas and untruthful stories about reality come from. That you need to protect yourself because you're dreaming this dream and you're making things happen with your expectation, envisionment, imagination, where all the purple cupcakes are happening. You're making them happen. So it's really essential to be able to use this effectively. So this is not part of my notes, but I want to say this, just as you're emanating and making a dimension full of purple cupcakes, which is positive, it is my assertion that the sky poops, the tiny particulate matters that we've been experiencing and ingesting unwittingly and unwillingly, I think that it is a quantum product, like an item that partially comes into being through our observership, that it is our pineal gland attention and ability to manifest that is perceiving this stuff and then literally making it into reality and making it into complex branching false neural networks within our own bodies. And I think that a big part of our journey of awakening into full responsibility, age of responsibility and ascension is not allowing that capacity to be hijacked. So it's the hijacking of observership that, hold on a second, I'm just going to turn on a fan. So why do I think this? As a brief, look into my mind. Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to look into my mind. I think maybe you might be surprised. But maybe you'd be like, wow, that sounds cool. I like to look into Aurora's mind. Okay, so here's me. I see things that are like these cloaked vessels in the sky. And, I have my sunglasses. I put on the sunglasses, the cloaked vessels disappear. I take off my sunglasses, the cloaked vessels are there. I'm like, okay, like if you were going to invade a planet or something like that, just if in this totally fictional science fiction story that I'm talking about with all of you guys, you wouldn't want to be seen. You'd be like, oh, I'm so stealthy. I'm going to put on a cloak of invisibility. I'm going to hide around. No one's going to see me. No one's going to know that I'm here. Why would something or someone that wants to emit a bunch of stuff into our world want to be seen? Why not just be like, I'm going to sneak around. Shh, don't tell anybody. I'm emitting a bunch of stuff that's going to control your mind or pollute you in some way. And my, kind of ongoing theory is that it's intentionally wanting to be seen because it requires our observership and attention to really come into being. That if it was totally imperceptible and totally invisible to us, that somehow it could not just come into being and be empowered as it wants to and needs to and inhabit your body, that it somehow needs you to see it and know about it. But, of course, it wears cloaks and holograms that are not what it truly is. So it makes a story that looks like a fixed wing aircraft that is, something like you would see at a regular human airport. But I don't think that that's what these craft actually are. So this is, again, my ongoing theory about what this is. But it's the sense of, once you know that, I share this with you, not so that you will rock back and forth in one place at the enormity of what's been happening in your world, but instead to get into levels of self-empowerment. So you want to protect your pineal gland so that you don't emit a bunch of thoughts and ideas and matter and superstructures. That's not something that's actually good, that you don't want to actually emit. That someone's standing over you while you're at your easel and saying, like, paint this and make this, and then put a bunch of white lines in the sky, and then paint a bunch of nanotubules into people's bodies, and then paint mind control into people's minds. Like, you're not really wanting to paint that into reality, but that you've been unduly influenced to do so. And I don't mean by me. I am reporting what I am seeing and experiencing, but not the genesis of these things. So that's also really important, that you look at where these thought seeds were even planted to become interpretation structures, to then become manifested as physicality structures, which then have to be responded to. And all of this, when I say welcome to my mind, is the sense of assessing with my inner eye, with my tendril of attention, the things that I feel attempting to encroach me, attempting to hijack my pineal gland, attempting to hijack my reality creation mechanisms and bring things forward into being that I do not wish to add my energy to, or to participate in the reality creation of. So I know I'm not the only person that is experiencing this here in this world. So the positive empowerment conclusion to this is one's individual said from the first person. An individual says this from the first person. My imagination and pineal gland and ability to perceive things must be pretty important stuff if this thing is kind of doing this mincing around by showing itself, but not showing itself fully, and wanting to get my attention and have me look at it, but not look at its true face, and then to somehow participate in the creation, emanation, and sustenance or generation of some form of matter that is not a healthy form of matter. Flying Rainbow Lasagne is the generation of matter that is healthy matter. And it is a type of matter that is the combination of both spirit, or pure light, and matter. It's a totally new dimension. This is what I'll end on. The Flying Rainbow Lasagne is not just a dance, and it's not just a way of bringing together formerly divergent realms and complex patterns. It literally creates a new form of matter. So Einstein has trained everyone to think, if my body is the equal sign, energy on one side, matter on the other, and that these things are in constant dualistic opposition. But what happens if you turn the equation around so that matter and energy come together? That is what Flying Rainbow Lasagne is. This is matter, this is energy, matter, energy, matter, energy. It becomes a totally new definition of and formation of stuff that is not discrete. You don't have these two different worlds. You don't have one world that is your world of imagination and thought structures and passion and feelings, and then another world that is the world of like actual purple cupcakes, dogs, cats, and trees, and other people. These two realms become totally interconnected and interpenetrated with not a discrete separation between the two of them. And when that happens, like, that's important. Yes, you're manifesting your inner world as your outer world, including all of your, vulnerabilities or things that you might need healing in. But you're also creating an entirely new form of matter, beginning with your body and then spreading outward into the larger cosmic infrastructure. You become made of something that's like spirit matter. So originally I was thinking like, maybe I should call this spatter, like spirit matter. But that sounds like spatter pattern and has all these negative connotations to it. So then we kind of settled, like Melissa's in the class, and kind of settled on like smatter, right? Spirit matter, smatter. That we've got a type of physicality presence that is completely indivisible from the light presence. It's not only a continuum where light then becomes glucose and then glucose becomes light again, but where these two things are so intertwined and interconnected that there's really not a way for them to be discrete anymore. And that is the resolution of duality. And that is also what this new era of personal responsibility is, and that you are moving into. So this is big. I want to say this because that stuff that I was talking about sky poops relates to this, which is the stuff from 10 years ago. You create a selective force field, allowing in certain energies, but blocking out other energies, and a safeguard during your process of creation. And the mind is cultivating a seed. So this is what I'm really getting at. That has the elements for the reality you wish to grow. Like you plant a thought seed within the vibrating field. That is what the act of godding is, like God as a verb. Just like, okay, in my garden, you create like a perfect, beautiful chocolate cake-like layer of soil. And then you take the seed that is the potential for whatever you want to grow, tomato or broccoli or cannabis, and put it on the soil. And then out of that, you get the proliferation of biological infrastructure that is a plant that grows and expands and gives you even more seeds, all right? That same thing is happening with your mind. The thought seed is planted in the garden of reality. And your thought seed is very similar to what I've already taught you about in terms of creating a Merkaba that has both specific desires, I want ice cream on Tuesday, and receptive desires, where you say, I want something that's a reward and that's cold on a hot summer's day, and that makes me feel great. That is a thought seed, a series of parameters, characteristics, and desires or deep passions and requirements that is like a checklist or something like that, that you put into the world. These are the things that I want. And then the world, God, the divine presence, is this amazing, like vibrating force field. You throw a seed into that vibrating force field and it has a genesis. It creates reality structures. It creates things outward. So the real thing that you want to shield your pineal gland from negative or errant impulses is during the creation of the seed. Create your seed in a pure and protected moment in your life where you know that you're putting absolute truth into what you're going to manifest, and then plant that seed and have it come forward, and then see what shape of a tree it brings to you. So the vibrating field is like the fertile ground of a garden, and it blooms into a reality. And you protect the seed from the influence of negative or fragmented thought entities who wish to be emanated by you and your co-creative process into the future. So these are my notes from 10 years ago. I talk about like negative or fragmented thought entities. I literally think that also relates to substances, that these substances that we see as sky pollution and also biological pollution, I think that they are kind of at that level of being a semi-entity, a semi-alive, a thing that wants to come into being. It doesn't really exist, and it needs to somehow hijack our reality creation mechanism to be birthed and to come into being. But none of this means that you should take full responsibility or blame yourself and say, I did it all. I confess. I did it all. I made it all happen. It's all my fault. Because that is also facile and reductionist and not really truthful, that there are many things that have been forced upon people's minds that have not been willing. And then there are things that have come into you from your neighbors, because that's what happens when the DNA antenna and the way that it speaks starts to get polluted or diluted. And then false stories are spoken throughout the entirety of DNA. So like, I'm lasagneing, I'm putting truthful stories into DNA, but the things that also went into people's DNA put false stories into their DNA, and that false story can be influencing you. So now more than ever, super, super duper important to have very strong, effective energy boundaries about what you want to be putting on your painting of reality or into your world seed, so that you manifest only those aspects of desired realities. And I'm going to say it, that includes not to manifest the expectation of some kind of catastrophe or destruction or disruption, including the idea, remember on October 4th, people were afraid there was going to be an activation signal sent through the phones that would somehow, make a lot of people keel over. Heads explode, aortas explode, or shamble around and then fall down to their death and decomposition. That didn't happen. I'm happy that didn't happen, because that's not what I'm emanating from my mind. I don't want those realities to happen, but somebody planted a seed in somebody's mind that seed then got activated by a lot of people that were afraid of something happening on October 4th. It's a perfect example of how you want to have clear inner shielding, so that other people's fears, worries, concerns, and outright fabrications don't unwittingly become a part of what you are creating in your world. So you protect the seed from the influence of negative or fragmented thought entities, or even sometimes other people in your life, and your own inner sun, or your own inner emanator of consciousness and ideas, the singularity point, that is where you want to drink the light from. That is where you really want to be getting your ideas from. That is the thing that you want to be in a rapport with. It's at the center of you. It is your own inner sun that's literally right up here inside of your brain, kind of at the top of your spine. And it is your own inner emanator of consciousness and ideas. And you drink from that center of being, or that center of intelligence within you, and use that in order to inform the generative process that you're going through in terms of creating reality. So that's the most of what I wanted to say for today. Opening the floor to questions and comments. I just feel like I have to apologize for not being as articulate as I usually am, and feeling a little bit fragmented and a little bit road weary, but thank you for understanding. So any questions or comments or anything else that I can share or speak to about this? Oh, okay, so wait. Pedro says, when traveling with the Merkaba, is that travel instantaneous, or is it something like the movie or sci-fi series where they warp or go light speed, or is it completely different? And he also goes on to say, or do you travel at the speed you want? Okay, great question. Some aspects of traveling in the Merkaba could be considered linear. Like, I imagine myself that I'm seated, that I have this energy field around me, and that in order to steer, like I'm envisioning, like maybe I'm leaning forward and that makes me steer forward. Then I'm leaning to the left, that makes me steer to the left. Or I'm leaning to the right, that makes me steer to the right. And that's apt, a kind of a sense of navigating with your Merkaba in a three-dimensional space, flying around literally with places like that. But also my flying rainbow lasagna and my Merkaba, the way that I do it and the flavor that it feels like is, I'm in a world of pure colors. That does not have gravity. That does not have the contextual relevance of walls and to ceiling and to floor. So there's not a way to be like, I'm flying relative to walls, ceiling, and floor. What it feels like is that there are time currents. When I put up my Merkaba and then I'm in my flying rainbow lasagna, I'm in an inner space that is actually a higher dimensional space. And it feels like I'm going fast, but that's not a question that I can really answer in terms of time, because that would be like, okay, the train station is here and then I'm moving at 60 or 100 miles per hour. But if the train station is here and then I jump into another dimension, how fast did I just move? Like I moved parallel or perpendicular to where the train station is. If there's not even an odometer, like the cop can't sit there with a radar gun and be like, do you know how fast you went into that dimension, ma'am? It's like, I was flying at 65 miles per hour, officer. Like there's not an answer like that to be able to be given, because it is not even measurable in terms of speed of light. It is a totally different higher dimensional experience. So my sensation does not necessarily feel like speed, but the sensation of speed is largely a vestibular feeling. That means in your ear canals, you have like these little motion detectors that help you to know, like if you're riding a bicycle or if you're running, how fast you're going. And then if you're slowing down, how fast you're slowing down. And a lot of that is largely relevant to your visual experience of what's going on in your field of vision. Because sometimes you can be sitting in a car and out of the corner of your eyes, someone next to you starts to go in reverse, and you think that you're moving because it is contextual, it is relevant. They're moving backwards, but you think that you're moving forwards. And then a lot of Einstein's work was in trying to repattern human thinking to think about the Doppler effect, time Doppler effect, and what it is to be contextually relevant to other things moving in time around you. But all of that is linear. So Einstein was a great guy, and I'm happy that he did the work that he did, but all of that was linear. The sense of like, I'm moving forward on a timeline, but if you're moving backwards on these timelines, and then how fast am I experiencing time? But timeline. And when you are doing Flying Rainbow Lasagne and Merkaba, you are able to sparkle as a brilliant beam of light across all of these different places into complex patterns. So you're not just moving from point A to point B on various parallel vectors. You are sparkling all between all of these different reality structures. And the answer is like you're moving at a speed that is indescribable and not measurable. But if I said that as a teacher, that would not be a very good answer for you. But that's the most accurate answer that you possibly can have. So I don't necessarily feel like I'm going fast when I do Flying Rainbow Lasagne, even though there are different degrees of urgency inside of me, that sometimes I have like mellow, peaceful moments in the dance that remind me of coasting on a bicycle. Like you're coasting on a bicycle and everything's fine. Then I have other moments of the dance that are very frenetic and very deeply impassioned, where you're like really like pedaling hard or like really dancing really hard. But these are not necessarily experienced to me as fastness or slowness. So the real answer is like, as you start to build these vehicles that you're traveling interdimensionally within, you will have to develop a new language and vernacular to describe the experiences, because linear language is not adequate. Distance time, equals rate times time. Those formulae are not going to work when you get up to these levels. And Pedro says, like the improbability drive. Exactly. So Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, brilliant stuff. Hat tip to Douglas Adams. It's also a very, very amusing movie. I think I like the movie better than the TV series from Great Britain. But at a certain point in the Heart of Gold, the spaceship that Zaphod Beeblebrox flies through vast layers of the cosmos, they press the infinite improbability drive, a big red button. And when you press the big red button, anything can happen. Improbability drive, ultimate moments of complete novelty, and all sorts of weird things happen when it gets pressed, and they end up at their destination, which I think is kind of lasagna-esque, but not really. Like we don't turn into bizarre grotesqueries or anything like that. But what does happen is the smatter of my body becomes a completely new patterning. So I've been working hard, of course, on restructuring the waters of my body and restructuring my cellular structure so that I am at greater and greater levels of clarity in terms of the light that I conduct. But what I'm also doing is going for great levels of accuracy in my lasagna, in the patterning of what I do. So you could imagine if you have all these different timelines here, what you want to do is be like dancing across them in exactly the right patterns. So I do patterning in terms of my cell membranes and how all of the cells of my body are talking to each other. Because I might have something from my earlobe connecting to my kneecap, non-locally. They're going to talk to each other directly, even though this is 10 million miles away from my kneecap. But think about it like this. If I have a friend, I just was visiting Sedona. My Sedona is whatever, 1,000 miles away from where I live. Can I call her on the phone? Yes. I don't actually have to drive 9 hours in order to drive over to her door, knock on the front door and say, hi, how's life? How are you today? What I can do is call her on the phone. My earlobe can actually talk to my kneecap on the phone. And what I do with my lasagnaing in my body, making this smatter, is make these very complex, accurate patterns of cell-to-cell communication. And then what I also do in reality restructuring is make very accurate communications between these various different levels of reality, where this level of reality here and this level of reality here don't have to actually drive to each other to meet each other and exchange ideas and information. The information gets exchanged. When I say like using the telephone, it is a non-local form of exchanging information. So my shorthand to be able to describe this to people, like especially when I do crystal sessions with them, is I say, I have a gift of non-locality. That is what that means, that I'm able to send information and receive information, as you all do and will at a certain point. You have this potential inside of you, just cultivate it and keep doing the exercises at the spiritual attainment gym. But I have the capacity to send and receive energy across time space. That's not limited to the linear definition of how and where time and energy can talk to one another. Yes, so infinite improbability drive. And I like the lightheartedness, and I like the lightheartedness of that movie as well. And ask me more questions, because we're getting to the good stuff. Like, let's go for like maybe another few minutes, because I think that I could tell as I was talking about that, you guys like, oh, wait, this is the stuff we really want to know about. So ask me more, because this might also be stuff. There we go. Hi there, Lisa. Thank you for being there, for being here with us. Thank you for your efforts. And she says, thank you. I'm so grateful that you are here sharing FRL. You're so welcome. Is dodecahedron the true shape of the grand cosmic Merkaba? No time, space, no time, no space, no timelines. Another false light teaching. Okay, so I would say dodecahedron is part of the overall structure of the cosmos, but it's not like, you know, like if you imagine a soccer ball, like that's the shape of the cosmos. I don't think it's shaped like that. I think the cosmos is actually shaped like what is on my dress, infinitely stretching like that in every single direction. I don't actually think it has an outer shape. Like if I said, like, here we have a little teacup, the outer shape of the teacup, the perimeter is this. I don't think that the universe or the cosmos, any of these things that we're talking about, actually has a perimeter like that. I think that it has a shape the way that like your body architecture has a shape, but I don't think that there is an outer shape of it. So now let's get to your, this is deep insight, because you say no time, no space, no timelines, another false light teaching. I think that when we get to the highest levels, like when you recognize all light is a continuum and all consciousness is a continuum, then you recognize that both time and space and timelines are all these inadequate constructs. I don't necessarily have to bash them by saying they're false light, like the stuff that comes out of the 5G crapola waves, that is false light. But we've been dealing with time and space and having some kind of an experience through being sustained by these concepts of what is time and what is space. But I would say they are an incomplete description and viewpoint of what we're actually submerged within, and that when we level up, we have to release attachments instead of being like super stuck on the definition of who and what it is, and saying like, I've studied physics for 25 years and this is what time space is, and this is, you know, what we know is right, you know, clinging desperately to my former definition of what I know is right. I think we must hold those definitions lightly, because you will get into a higher dimensional perspective where you will recognize that things are redefined. And so it's a partial truthfulness, but not the totality truthfulness. And at a certain point, I think you let go of those things because it's not the complete description, and you get ready for the complete description. Time does exist and space does exist, but it doesn't exist in the way that it was being described, and that it also is part of something, I think, much larger. So, because I see time as something that is alive, and that our circulations through these shapes and through these membranes are literally keeping that thing alive. That's different than some people who are really traumatized, and they think like it's all a battery for energy harvesting. They think like these chakras and your flight through time and your multiple incarnations, they think that's all energy harvesting and is all like being part of a battery a very negative type of thing, a very negative type of viewpoint of all this. And I'm like, no, I don't think that it's energy harvesting or a negative viewpoint or anything like that. I think that we're like the circulatory system of a big giant animal, and that when we move through time in the right way, we keep the animal alive. And I want it to be alive, and I want to be alive. So I'm not as traumatized as a lot of people are who have been through the karmic washing machine so many times. I'm much more idealistic. So that's why I'm like, yeah, like I want to keep time alive. But then there are also like some very, very negative presences that would like to destroy time completely. And those are the ones that we don't like lasagna around here. They don't like lasagna. They want to destabilize the entire fabric of space, time, and consciousness. They not only go around pooping all over, but they have no problem with ending lives. And when you end lives and they're not supposed to end, that is what really destroys the fabric of space, time. And they do that intentionally. They're like, oh, if we end that life there, then you're going to totally destroy the fabric of space, time, reality. It's like, isn't that where you live? They're like, yeah, exactly. They're like hugely self-destructive. So, but then, you know, something, here's a big takeaway from today's class. They're self-destructive because they don't exist. Dun, dun, dun. And I think deeply they know, like, technically in their paraphrasing perspective, it would be like this. Technically, I don't exist. I kind of know I don't exist. Somebody stop me from existing. Stop me from existing. I'm not actually supposed to be here. And I think that's a lot of what the frisson that we experience is, because I'm like, I actually exist. You guys actually exist. That stuff doesn't exist. Why is that stuff showing itself to us and making it known to ourselves? I think part of it is to try to hijack observership. But then at the end of my personal journey, it ends also being so that I will unmake it, because that is what the Flying Rainbow Lasagne dance is. Energy and entropy, energizing certain things and unmaking certain things by sending them to entropy and taking the energy away from them. So some of these things show themselves to me, and it's not like, oh, I want to hijack your observership, paint me into existence. I'm like, thank you for showing me that you're a pile of doo-doo that needs to go bye-bye, and I will unmake you now. Yes. Marie, thank you for being here. Says, how long does the Merkaba last after initiating it? Great question. Some of my Merkabas are limited and time sensitive. Like I'm going to say, okay, if I want to get to ice cream on Tuesday, if this Merkaba doesn't actually bring me ice cream by Tuesday, then it like stops. It's no longer a relevant program. So some things are just about events and time or whatever. Let's say you're going to have a big piano recital and you do your Merkaba and it's all about like having everything go good on that day. And then you finish the recital and then it's over because that Merkaba was specifically about that event. But some Merkabas that I do are long lasting. Like I have a Merkaba around me, around my dog, around my car, around things that I care about. And that care keeps on going. It doesn't end. So those Merkabas are constantly going, but they need to be refreshed. And I refresh them every time I feel some sense of vulnerability. So like every time my dog is going to go up to another dog and like, you know, kind of like say like you're like, you know exactly how this is going to go. Like kids playing on the playground. Like, is everybody going to be okay? I put a Merkaba around it. I put a Merkaba around this like last week. Yes. But we're putting a fresh one around it now. We're reinvigorating it now. And the truth is, I put Merkabas around myself and things that I care about continually all the time. But like they run out. It's kind of like friction or something. Like they do kind of run out of energy. But also another way of thinking about it is that the context becomes different. Like my dog is meeting a new dog. We haven't met this dog on this day. We don't know how it's going to go. So you do it like that. You could think of it like they run out of steam, but you could also think about it like it's necessary to create fresh scrambled eggs because you made yesterday's breakfast yesterday, you make today's breakfast today. So you make a continued new Merkaba. And let's say you have a Merkaba around like planet Earth. And you're like, okay, I want to protect the entire planet Earth. You might want to refresh that like every day. It doesn't have to be all day long, but you can do that as part of your like daily practice. You can envision a protection of things that you really love and enjoy, including yourself and your body and your presence in life and in time. And then you can do this pretty fast because I have a continual Merkaba and I still do an extra Merkaba before I get going on my Flying Rainbow Lasagne. That's like, I'm going to stretch every time before I do my exercise because I'm like, my muscles are tight. I need to stretch. And I'm like, you know something, I got to put up a Merkaba to protect my lasagna activities. And I just do it all the time, even though, of course, I have a continue general Merkaba, and I've continued general specifics on it of like not wanting to harm anybody with my activities, no negative blowback, having things that are positive in terms of keeping the larger time animal alive and not just working for myself. That always kind of like goes without saying. It's like saying, when you're making breakfast in the morning, you're like, I want this to be actual food that's actually edible and not toxic poisonous snake venom or anything like that. Like all of that just goes without saying, that that's what you want. I hope that answers the question. It's different in every situation. Some things are time sensitive, some things are eternal, but they need to kind of have extra momentum added to them over time, and some things are extra layers of things that you've already got going on that's totally fair to kind of like refresh and augment them. And that's a great question. Thank you. And Pedro says, so you do notice that you are traveling, just not in the way we are familiar in the 3D and in the timeline. Yes, yes, yes. So my sensation of traveling when I do my traveling is not a linear point A to point B, but it's definitely a traveling. It is a leaving of one reality and an emergence into a new reality. So what it feels like at first is that I press neutral, go into neutral. This is me shifting my gears. I'm shifting my gears into neutral, and then I'm in a state of quantum indeterminacy. I'm actually going to do this right after class. And then I dance in my state of quantum indeterminacy, all these complex patterns, anything can happen. And then I bring it all together, create another page break, and then I'm done. And then I reintegrate, put the transmission back into drive or engage those gears again, get back into reality. And then I kind of look around like, okay, like I just did something. Let's see what I did. I just flew somewhere. I'm not exactly sure where, like I just plopped down, I just landed. Let's see, like your hair's all like messed up and everything, kind of coming to reality. Like, okay, here I am. Let's figure out where am I? What's going on? Not like where am I? What's going on? But more the sense of like, what have I created in the wordless, higher dimensional state of rapport now that I am back into my daily waking linear ego? So that is what the experience is like. And then sometimes when I'm in the actual experience, like I said, there are different qualities to it. There's slow flying, coasting, moments of pure freedom and expansiveness, sometimes urgency, sometimes peril, sometimes feeling like it's very like intense and fast, and sometimes feeling like it's slow and lyrical, exactly like music. It's exactly like music. So that's a great question. So if there's any more questions, I'm happy to speak to them. And if not, then I didn't do that much of my own lasagna-ing while I was on the road. And I can't wait. Actually, I had a busy day of preparing for class and doing other things. You can tell the sunlight is coming in over there. It's optimum lasagna conditions. I'm going to lasagna, guys. It's going to happen. And then you'll be like, if something weird happens or if there's purple cupcakes or whatever, because I just did the infinite improbability drive, and then you'll see how things kind of settle out at the end of it. Thank you for allowing me some lightheartedness. Thank you. So thank you so much to everybody who is able to be here live. Apologies again for sending out such a last moment notification, but I knew that you would understand. And Path of Light people, yes to this Saturday, and I'll be sure to send out an invitation because we'll be wrapping up what I've been teaching for the past 4 weeks. Pedro says, love the lasagna. Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you very much for your participation and for the love, and so much love back to you. And Lisa says, thank you. Love you, and Cheeky. Thank you very much. Love you too. And Cheeky, let's see. I don't know if she's probably sleeping in dog bed. Cheeky's catching up on she didn't get to sleep very much. Cheeky's used to sleeping till 10 a.m. She was up at 7:30 every morning. So Cheeky's sleeping up, catching up on all of her sleep that she needs. Thank you so much, everyone. Truly, thank you. Press the button.